training in fully equipped radio and TV studios and web-based computer labs. The instructional staff consists of broadcast media and professionals like myself with many years of broadcast and online media experience. I've watched some of my former students get jobs and excel in the industry. Upon graduation, students are well prepared to enter the broadcast media industry. Check out our campus in Chicago and Lombard and visit beonair.com. That's beonair.com to learn how to get started.
Time to kick off your career in radio or TV broadcasting at the Illinois Media School's downtown Chicago campus. Call us at 312-884-8000 or visit 530 South State Street to learn how you can make your dreams of being on television and radio a reality. Don't take my word for it. Check out what some industry professionals said about the Illinois Media School.
Jonathan Hood, ESPN 1000.
People often ask me, Hoodie, how can I be a sports radio guy like you? I tell them it takes drive and determination, and you need to learn how it all works. You can learn to be a sports talk show host, a producer, do play-by-play, and shoot and edit video. You'll have a chance to get internships at stations where you can tap into the knowledge of industry pros. With job placement assistance, you can start your new career in 1 year. It's a great school to get the hands-on training you need for a broadcasting career, doing what you love. They have affordable tuition and financial aid for those who qualify. So don't waste another minute. Go to beonair.com/Chicago Sports. That's beonair.com/Chicago Sports.
This is your Sportstown Chicago update. I am Rob Hill. Over this past weekend, there was a lot to talk about, so let's get down to it. On the diamond yesterday, the White Sox completed a 3-game sweep over the Tampa Bay Rays down in St. Petersburg. Daniel Palka proved to be the deciding factor as he blasted a go-ahead 2-run homer in the 9th inning, his 17th home run of the season, as the Sox went on to win 8-7. Back home on the north side, the Cubs dropped and split their 4-game series with the San Diego Padres as they lost 10-6. John Lester was once again roughed up as he won 5 innings and allowed 5 earned runs as he has not recorded a quality start in nearly a month. The Sox begin their series with the New York Yankees tonight, as do the Cubs with the Kansas City Royals. On the gridiron, the Chicago Bears had their first preseason game of the season as they fell to the Baltimore Ravens 17-16. I am Rob Hill, and this has been your Sportstown Chicago update.
This is the Nick and Rob Show on SportstownChicago.com. With your host, Rob Hill.
Hey guys, this is 22025.
And Nick LoPicolo.
I'm Pickle Rick!
And we are back here live from the Illinois Media School studios here in Lombard, Illinois. I am Rob Hill.
And I'm Nick LoPicolo.
And we are back on the airwaves, and it feels so gosh darn good to be back here on the Nick and Rob Show here. Nick, how are you doing, buddy? It's been way too long. Out of state for a while, down in Florida. Had a nice little vacay with the boys. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was great. Honestly, it's good to just sit in the sun for a bit and just enjoy Florida. Honestly, it was some good stuff.
And the experience that I had, or the vacation that I took, was a literal polar opposite to that, being up at Country Thunder. Although we experienced some sun, also a lot of thunderstorms and rain, and it kind of a polar opposite of that, and a lot of stuff going on, obviously, with Lollapalooza here in the Chicagoland area this weekend, so a lot of things of that sort going on as well. So just being a part of that was also pretty cool, but as much as we would like to talk about that, we have some very popular sports topics to get into and talk about. But before I get into that, I just saw this funny little tidbit that I thought I'd get out there and share before we just dive head in first here, Nick. We were talking about it a little bit because you and I, when we come out the outline before things, before the show, we usually, figure it out like the day of. We usually get out, usually meet up, go out for lunch, brunch, whatever it might be, and just kind of talk about things, discuss how we're going to outline things. And this morning, me and Nick were talking about something that we saw on Facebook. Of if you want to share it, go right ahead. I've already laughed enough about it, but I think it's pretty great.
Well, you got to remind me on the number exactly. I know it was somewhere around the $250,000 range, but Blake Griffin having to pay some hefty child support
payments. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't even the alimony payment included either. It was just strictly
strictly the monthly payment.
That was the thing that was like the most surprising thing to me. It was I think it was like $258,000 was the exact number a month. I mean, for this kid to get $258,000 a month, and his child's only 2 years of age. He was never married. It was his girlfriend. They split up a few years back. Around the birth of his first and only child, Blake Griffin. That's did a little bit of research behind that, but that's $258,000 for a child, for a child's deployment. Yeah, he's just kicking those little feet up at 2 years old, And so was the mom too, at home, just completely relaxing and chilling about her life. Well, as I'm sitting here with barely $2.58 in my bank account, we're going to get right into it here. The Chicago Bears got back to the gridiron for the first time in about half a year or so and played and participated in the Hall of Fame game last week against the Baltimore Ravens, honoring Ray Lewis from the Baltimore Ravens, as he was a Hall of Fame inductee, as of course was the Chicago Bears former linebacker Brian Urlacher, also a first ballot Hall of Famer inductee as well. And to both of the players' acknowledgments and to both of their excitement, defense was a huge focal point in the game that was played on Thursday.
Well, I mean, you would expect that because, I mean, with it being the first preseason game of the year, you're not going to see any starters. It's going to be very just – you're going to run the ball, you're going to pass the ball, real simple plays. It's not any trick plays usually being thrown out there. Although the Ravens decided to, towards the end of the game, we're like, we actually kind of want to win this game, so they're going to start sending a little more blitzes, but it's a lot more just standard offense, standard defense. So it's not going to be a high-scoring game. Nobody expects
also, I mean, the biggest reason that is because, obviously, to avoid injury.
Yes.
That's the biggest reason for that. Although you did state, and it is a preseason game, that there's not a lot of starters. It's usually the young guys. It's usually roster add-ons or guys that they added for cuts and everything like that to see what they can do. So it's just things of that sort. Was there anybody that stood out from you, either from the Chicago side of things or the Baltimore side of things, as you watched this matchup?
Well, I mean, I love Javon Wims. I mean, I think we both are going to be high on him from this game.
I think a lot of people in Chicago are going to be high on him.
And I've been saying this since he got drafted. I mean, the dude played in the national championship game. He's arguably one of the better receivers out of Georgia this last year. He was one of the top. I'm not sure if he was their top receiver, but I know he was top two, always on the field, it seemed like, as a wideout for Georgia this last season. And on a lot of people's boards during the draft, he was ranked higher than some of the guys that were taken 4th and 5th round. So, I mean, the fact he fell all the way to 7th to the Bears to be able to be taking that late in the draft, I mean, there's a lot of value in that type of pick. And there's a lot of people around the team and on the team that are very high on this kid. I mean, he works hard in practice. He's got the length. He goes up for balls. I know earlier today on the radio, I was hearing Anthony Miller give an interview about, this guy, you throw it up there, he's going to go get it. I mean, that's high praise from a guy that was taken in the 2nd round by the Bears this last
Well, I mean, the good thing that you noted there, Nick, is that, he does have some length, and he's an added red zone target or a deep ball threat, which is something outside of Allen Robinson that I think the Bears could really use. They do have speed threats with Taylor Gabriel, obviously, as another wide receiver option. But I think having potentially another, because I mean, if you look at the depth chart right now for the Chicago Bears, they're going to try to do all they can to not leapfrog the development of Kevin White. Obviously, seeing very few games from White being played, it's very hard to determine what he's going to do this season. I think Matt Nagy, Chicago Bears' new head coach, is going to try to do all he can to try to be very cautious with the development of White. But I think Wims might be pushing the issue on that for the depth chart. I think after this first game, he recorded, 7 receptions, a total of 89 yards, and he's going to slowly start moving up now the depth charts for the Chicago Bears in that regard. But I'm going to go to the other side of the coin here and go on a little bit about the huge quarterback conundrum going out in Baltimore with Joe Flacco, Robert Griffin III, and Lamar Jackson. We got to see a little bit of RG3. He started the game for the Baltimore Ravens, and he had one TD, one pick going on in that game. I believe he went 5 for 11, if I have that correctly. Just Robert Griffin III doing all I can. I have nothing but respect for RG3. I have respect for wonderful athletes like him who could have been a standout star in just about any other sport because of how fantastic of an athlete he was. But just for trying to do his best to try to come back and really be a starter in the NFL again is what his aspirations are. But this situation is interesting out in Baltimore because name me the last time you can talk about a team where they talk about their backups more than they do the starting quarterback. Because obviously when the season starts, barring injury, Joe Flacco is still going to be the starting quarterback for the Ravens unless something happens to go wrong, during the season. The Ravens could be an interesting team this year. They could be in playoff contention or they could be out early in the first 4 or 5 weeks. I really think it could go either way for the Ravens this season. If it does go, Nick, to the point where the Ravens, let's say they get off to about a 1-4 start, and we're entering around turkey time and around Thanksgiving, do you start to pull Flacco out of that spot and start to see what Lamar Jackson can do? Because this is the guy that they want to give the keys to their franchise.
I think you just let him sit this year. Because, the dude, I've been high on him since he's coming out of college. Don't get me wrong. I think this dude can be an amazing
But not exactly. You
NFL.
haven't been exactly too high on him from the throwing aspect, though. Not a lot of people have. We know what he can do out of the pocket when it comes to scrambling and in terms of running. We know what he can do. But yeah, no, go ahead.
I like he's got a quick release. I know during the game they timed it. It was like half a second the ball was out. He's one of the fastest release out of anybody coming out of college this year because he's got a very short, compact throwing motion. It's not huge like some of the other guys, so it takes a little bit. It's a little bit quicker to get out of his hands. And obviously, you pointed out he's able to get out of the pocket. He can run. That's his mainstay. The one thing that he had coming out of college that's an issue is, his footwork in the pocket. He's very narrow feet in the pocket. He needs to widen his stance out a little bit. And that's what they're trying to work on a little bit. That's the only thing that's the issue with him.
I know.
That's the one thing that
I know something for in terms of when we're talking about quarterbacks coming out of college, the difference between them and NFL. The biggest difference, especially for quarterbacks, is the system that they play in. The drop stepping for quarterbacks when they get the ball hiked to them is a huge thing between the college level and the NFL. Having 3 drop steps, 5 drops, 7 drops, whatever it might be. That's something that, like you said, talking about Jackson's footing and his spacing is something that he is going to have to work on. But one thing that I was very impressed with him, even though it was kind of something that a lot of us were expecting him to be doing well at, is his scrambling ability outside of the pocket and him to be able to create plays for himself, which I think is a huge intangible that obviously not a lot of quarterbacks in this league are blessed with. So I think you can teach a quarterback in some ways how to throw the ball, either whether it's become a short, more inaccurate guy. I think that's going to be Jackson's game. He's got the arm for it. He definitely has the arm to be a great quarterback. The accuracy is an issue. I also think his IQ is also an issue, really, as a quarterback as well. But that's going to just come with time, learning the playbook and everything. And he's got to learn. And he's going to learn from a guy who's been to a Super Bowl before that's out in front of him. So if he can gain any knowledge at all from Joe Flacco, from Coach Harbaugh as well, I think he can gain a lot of knowledge in that system. But I don't think I would necessarily agree with you in sitting with him for the entire year because I do think he might actually see some potential playing time. If they're really relying on Flacco this year, I believe he is a free agent after the season. If they're really hoping, I believe he is a free agent after this year.
Yeah, I can't.
You can't pull up the stats on that one. But I think they really are going to keep him that starting role for this year. But I think they're going to try to see what Lamar can do, possibly in some special teams. That might be a huge question mark. But I heard some questions going around Ravens camp that they are thinking about exercising that idea. But I really do think we're going to see Lamar Jackson as the Baltimore Ravens starting quarterback by around week 5 or 6.
You know what, though? I'm sticking with what I got because I know what out of the Ravens camp, what they've been talking about is right now the depth chart is RG3 is the backup. And what's going to happen is if Flacco's not performing well,
but what would be the benefit? Okay, but what would be the benefit, though, of starting RG3 over Lamar Jackson?
Just learn the NFL game. That is what you need to make sure he's doing.
But learning the NFL game is also learning from your mistakes. There's no pressure on the kid to perform if the Baltimore Ravens are entering week 6 and they're 1-4. There's no pressure on that because I believe they have a bye week in week 3 or 4, which is why I'm saying 1-4. But my point being with that is that sometimes you have to let these kids fail in order to learn their own mistakes, especially in professional sports. It also teaches them to see how great their mental toughness is. And the quarterback position, out of all positions in all sports, mental toughness probably is the number one factor for a quarterback in regards to this position. So, I mean, it's definitely a huge thing I think Jackson should be tested on.
You bring up mental toughness, though. I mean, what if you throw him in there and he just breaks down and just his confidence is shot? Then, you just broke a quarterback at that point.
That's where the mental toughness part has to come in. But, I mean, that's going to – if he breaks down after one game, then that goes to show the type of guy that you have in your system, that he's not the right choice then, that he's not the guy for you. But moving on here, coming back a little bit in a more Chicago Bears talk, Brian Urlacher, declarated very beloved fan favorite of every Chicago Bears fan all around the Chicagoland area, played for the Chicago Bears from 2000 to 2012, was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he had a few words to say about the legacy of playing for the Chicago Bears.
To the Chicago Bears, the charter franchise of National Football League history. First, I must acknowledge the fans. I never got a chance to say goodbye. The best fans in the world. Even when we stunk, they sit in their seats at Soldier Field freezing their butts off. Every time. And in case you didn't know, our fans love defense. The most coveted position in pro football for a defensive player is to play middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. Just think about it. The history of this position is unmatched by any other team. Bill George, Dick Butkus, Mike Singletary, and now, I can barely say it, me.
I mean, I just had chills listening to that. I mean, listen to like his soliloquy throughout that speech. Maybe not the most, I guess you could say. Because like I'm trying to think, like most guys with like Hall of Fame speeches, they're usually, I mean, there's like big words. They usually quote certain coaches or players. They usually use a lot of like similes and metaphors, and they try to make it sound as professional and eloquent as possible. But I loved how Brian here, I mean, he just tackled not literally, but he literally just like went into it, just tackled and just went straight forward into what he was getting at here. And no, he is among obviously one of the all-time greats, not only in Chicago Bears franchise history for middle linebackers, but I mean of all time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you look at what he did for the franchise. I mean, being one of the best defensive quarterbacks, if you can make it. I mean, as the middle linebacker for the Bears, defensive quarterbacks, because I mean, the way he ran that defense, checking down or checking with the audibles that the quarterback was making. I mean, just literally just playing a mind game with the quarterback. And most of the time, I remember he even came out and said, most of the time we weren't even audibling. We were just trying to mess around with the quarterback to make him think, oh, they're audibling. I need to audible out of this. So, I mean, it was a complete mind game he would play with them. I mean, he was great at that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that with Urlacher that a lot of people, I think, don't value enough with him is his leadership. I mean, everybody that came from the Chicago Bears, whether they were drafted, into their system or came via free agency, I mean, they looked up to him, paramount. I mean, Lance Briggs would not have been the linebacker that he was if it was not for Brian Urlacher's tutelage. He really helped Briggs his first couple of years in the league. Charles Tillman has nothing but the utmost respect. I believe he was there for Urlacher's induction. Just the guys that were also surrounded with Urlacher during his time, obviously the 2005-2006 Super Bowl appearance. I mean, that defense is probably the best Chicago Bears defense that we've seen since, the 85 Bears. So I mean, wonderful players that are surrounded by Urlacher. I mean, just looking at some of these numbers, I mean, he's recorded 1,353 sacks over the course of his career that ranks in the top 10 of all time. He's responsible for 41.5 sacks, creating 34 turnovers, and he was named the Defensive Player in the Year in 2005. So, I mean, the numbers just go on and for him. I mean, a 5-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler overall. He was also named the 2000 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. And then, obviously, 2018 first ballot Hall of Fame inductee.
You meant tackles, right? Not sacks, correct? With the 1,354.
Oh, no, for tackles. Yeah, with tackles.
Yeah.
No, and then 41 and a half, 41 and a half, 41.
I was way off with some stats then.
There would be just a bunch of body bags laying like around the field, a lot of empty like tombstones, and there'd be a lot of dead bodies out there. Brenner create all that sacks. But in all seriousness though, I think that Brian Urlacher, I think in a lot of ways he is underrated outside of Chicago. I really think he's underappreciated because he did play in the limelight of his co-inductee and Ray Lewis. I think that had a lot of play in Urlacher's legacy, but I think he really thrived with that. because in terms of media, I think he handled the press really well. And that's something that when you're talking about Hall of Fame inductees, that's always a question that really comes into people's minds is how well does that person handle the media? And that really shouldn't be a determination. But there's a lot of guys, especially in the NFL, there's a lot of controversy. Look at the two wide receivers that we're talking about going in, and Terrell Owens and Randy Moss. They already kept Terrell Owens off the first year of his ballot, of his eligibility because of how much of a quote unquote a-hole he was in the locker room or how he handled the media and the press. So I mean that does take a lot of consideration into your candidacy into the Hall of Fame. So I think because Urlacher was such a great guy to get along with, I think that definitely helped his credibility in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, you look at his playing career, the way he played really transcended the way what guys are playing like now. I mean, look at what type of linebacker people are going after now are very similar to what he played like. I mean, he was not the biggest dude on the field, 6'4", 258. I mean, that's not your prototypical linebacker. Like nowadays he is. Like nowadays he would fit in perfectly with the 6 foot to 6'4" range, which a lot of people are going for because they have the speed to keep up with the tight ends. He would fit in perfectly nowadays, but I think that's because teams are kind of going after guys that were his size. Because back then it was a lot more of, I want the 6'6" to 6'8" linebackers, these big guys that can just pound you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but like,
that was a huge thing, obviously, for the running game. But that's what middle linebackers are primarily, there for is to be huge run stoppers and to prevent the running game. And then to surround you by great outside linebackers that can help you either with the blitzing game or can also help you, with the pass defense. But Urlacher could really do all three of those things. Obviously, pass rushing really being his MO and go-to. He was also an excellent he can also read the pass exceptionally well from the second the quarterback hiked the ball. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm always going to remember from Urlacher's legacy is just going back on his leadership. If I had to have, and I'm going to pose the question to you in a second, just like one thing that is always going to stick into my mind in Urlacher's legacy is his leadership. Whenever we'd be sitting on our couches at home watching the games and we'd be watching a huddle after a play, I mean, he'd be looking to individual guys, primarily, rookie guys, first year, second year in the league, and just saying that, hey, let's say he lost a guy in coverage. If it was a third and long opportunity, guy lost his coverage, wide receiver beat him to it. I'm talking about, a defensive back or whoever it might have been who lost coverage, and there's a new first down. He didn't demoralize any of the guys on his team. He always kept them upbeat, and he always kept them inclusive within the game. And that's something that's always going to really stand out to me with Urlacher's legacy is his leadership.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. The leadership definitely, it was the big thing that I would look at and really take away from what he did in his career. I mean, he really rubbed off on a lot of guys as they grew up and grew through the NFL. I mean, and you look at guys like Lance Briggs and guys like, even probably you can even say Hunter Hillenmeyer. I mean, that dude played through it, even though he wasn't. That's a name. That's a blast right there. But that's a guy that didn't play too long in the league. But I guarantee he rubbed off on him nicely too. The way he played.
A little tidbit here before we run into just a fun little fact because you brought up Hunter Hillenmeyer. For whatever reason, whenever I picture Hunter Hillenmeyer, all the way back in, because all of these, because if I'm only 19 years old, you know that, but maybe not everybody watching and listening to this is. But I remember just back in elementary school. Do you remember those Got Milk campaigns where they'd have those posters and everything? I remember in my gym that they had in my my elementary school and middle school, they had a Hunter Hillenmeyer poster where it was his size and everything it was a standee, and it was him with a milk mustache and everything, and it was. I don't know why. I just thought that was really funny. I wanted to share with that. But just transitioning a little bit over to the head first-year coach of the Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy. Just a kind of a question I wanted to pose for you here, Nick, because unfortunately Nagy does not have a type of I can't really say that he has a type of playmaker, a stud like what past coaches had, with Brian Urlacher. What are some things that Nagy can do as a first-year coach that he can do with his players from both sides of the ball that either John Fox or Mark Trestman could not do?
Well, I think what Fox didn't do a lot of is, he just didn't really try and spread the field. That's exactly what Nagy's going to do with this team. He's going to at least put into the defensive back's mind that I'm going to try and throw over you, and that'll spread out and allow Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen more running room. And that's something that John Fox didn't do because, I mean, last year you look
Way
at
too
Jordan
conservative.
Howard. Yeah, Jordan Howard, he was not able to run because, I mean, they'd be stacking up 7-8 guys in the box because there was no threat of throwing.
Because you know that they didn't have any outside game.
Exactly.
Yeah, they were.
So that's what Nagy.
Yeah,
is
they were either
going
going to have
table.
they were either going to have posts on the corners, or they had very few slant routes going out over the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that. And also on top of that, why I think the Bears had to have ranked in this past offseason, I would say in the top maybe 3 in terms of like grading their overall moves. I mean, supplying Trubisky with offensive weapons around him to be able to succeed in those goals as well. I mean, having Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton, giving you all of these offensive, weapons, to help you with that, especially, Allen Robinson, I believe is a 1 or 2-time Pro Bowler, with the Jacksonville
couple.
Yeah, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, I mean, that is a huge, although he's coming off of a major injury, but he is a huge asset to have and to help transition, a rookie quarterback. I mean, if we're going back, since we're talking a little bit theme here on the Nick and Rob show from the Illinois Media School studios here in Lombard, Illinois, sticking to a little bit of a theme with the Urlacher days, I mean, you think about Rex Grossman, in his first couple of years in the league, he had Marty Booker, and then a couple of years later he had Muhsin Muhammad, coming over from the Carolina Panthers. So those are some really good throwback names for you.
Those are blast.
I can remember a couple of things, even though it's not even my time. I mean, when Grossman was a rookie, was what, 03, 04?
Yeah.
When Grossman was a rookie, I was 5. I was 5 when Rex Grossman. You can't laugh at them. What were you, like,
I was
7?
Yeah,
exactly.
7.
So it can't be all that bad then. But in all seriousness, I think I agree with you. 100%. I think that he's going to be a blessing for the offense of the Chicago Bears. I think we're going to see the rankings for them really jump up. I think they're going to go from a bottom 10 very conservative defense and let their defense pretty much run their offense. Kind of a middle of the packed offense. Obviously, Trubisky is going to be the main key. But I think Howard is only going to get better and better. It's going to be interesting to see how they utilize Cohen this year because I think they're going to want to keep him more.
They're going to let him out on the field more often.
They're going to let him. But I think
Fox let him do it.
But I think it's going to be more on the terms of special teams though than it is for the running game.
I mean, they said that they're going to let him not just be running back. They're going to put him out at slot receiver every once in a while. They're going to spread him out in the field. I mean, they're going to try.
They did that with Benny Cunningham as well last year when they put him in slot receiver positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Bears have like you mentioned. I mean, you just. Tariq Coleman and Benny Cunningham. I mean, you're just adding more and more targets, for Trubisky's use. But I think the biggest key to all of this is what Nagy is also going to help. It also seems like he's a great players coach. Everybody gets along with him extremely well. But I mean, we also heard the same of Fox. So I'm not going to really, read too much into that. But the biggest thing for me is taking pressure off the offense. Really letting the defense kind of take a breather. Because, I mean, coming off the field and then either be down and out or they'd be
like a 3 and out.
It would be
right away.
It would be a 3 and out. Well, turnovers they didn't have too much of to deal with last year, but the problem with the Bears last year is that they'd have like 8 to 10 long possessions and they'd be lucky to get a field goal out of it. On the offensive end. So I guess it was good in terms for a breather for the defense, but I mean they would just add more pressure on them that they'd have to go back out there and have to do all they could to try to keep the deficit where it was at because the Bears were always, it seemed like, down last year.
Yeah, and I think I'll touch a little bit more on the defense, I guess, now because we've gone only on offense. You did say with defense you wanted to talk about how Nagy could maybe affect that too. And yeah, the offense will. I mean, if this offense can do what people are thinking it can do with Trubisky and all the weapons that like you've listed out, Gabriel, Robinson, Burton, all these guys, if they can utilize those players and really make sure it takes some of the pressure off that defense so then they don't have to hold the other team to 7 points because all your offense can put up is 7 points. Run the score up a little bit so your defense doesn't have to worry about, we can't let them get down the field at all. So, I mean, and I think that this year, this defense could look pretty good. Like, I mean, you look at up the middle, especially with linebackers. I mean, you have 3 linebackers that, as long as Roquan Smith stops the holdout here pretty soon, you have 3 legitimate linebackers to start, being Kwiatkowski, Roquan Smith, and Danny Trevathan up the middle. So, I mean, that is a good situation to be in because, I mean, one of those guys go down like Trevathan likes to do. Goes down with an injury. You have Kwiatkowski to be able to step up and be that starting middle linebacker.
I think depth is just the key word that we have into this whole thing with the Bears. And I mean, just going back on their defense really quick, but I think last year, I mean, that was the biggest thing that everyone talked about was how impressive their defense was. I mean, obviously, every Bears fan remembers last year. There's not really too many things they want to remember from last year, but the defense being one of them. But I mean, the huge game that Eddie Jackson had against Carolina, was extremely impressive. So, I mean, there's a lot of, young guys that really, stepped up for the Bears. Obviously, Kyle Fuller, was the biggest part of that defense, and he will be, continue to be another huge part of the defense as well this year. So it's just going to be something interesting that we're going to be keeping our eye on here in the upcoming weeks. I believe they have their second preseason game next week.
Thursday.
Oh, Thursday. Okay.
Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I was reading something about Vontae's perfect or whatever. Did I butcher that?
No, you got it. No,
perfect.
that was good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, but I really appreciate that. That he's actually going to be playing in that game off of his suspension.
Well, yeah, no, I mean they're going to. There's going to be starters probably playing 1 or 2 series, and that'll be it. I mean,
coming off of his suspension from last year, which is what I thought was,
preseason games. I mean, you don't get suspended from these. He'll probably be suspended for.
I just wasn't 100
few games because I think he actually.
I don't have Roger Goodell on like my speed dial, so I'm not exactly
Yeah, sure, no. Yeah.
So I'm not exactly 100%, aware of the NFL handbook. But coming up here on the Nick and Rob Show on Sportstown Chicago, we're going to be going to the north side and the south side to talk a little baseball action here. John Lester's struggles continue as the Cubs split a series out in San Diego, and the White Sox are on a winning streak. Is this real life? Me and Nick are going to dive more into that as we come back here on the Nick and Rob Show.
Hi, I'm Rob Rose, and I'm one of the instructors here at Illinois Media School. I've been teaching here at the school since 2010, as a matter of fact, between Lombard and Chicago campuses. This is definitely the place to come. It's going to prepare you for absolutely everything that you need to know about the broadcast industry. We're talking radio, television, web, podcasting, absolutely everything. Get in touch with the school and take advantage of it. Make it your career. Do it now. I'm Rob Rose, nights on 100.3 WSHE in Chicago, and I am IMS.
McGruff, the crime dog, here with my nephew Scruff. Here's the address for my new free comic activity book.
Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652. Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652.
It shows kids what to do about guns and drugs and bullies and strangers. And it's got games and puzzles, too. Write it down now.
Scruff McGruff, Chicago, Illinois, 60652.
A public service message from this station, the U.S. Department of Justice, the Crime Prevention Coalition, and the Ad Council.
It takes strength to trust in your natural ability, to refuse to take shortcuts, to refuse to improve your game by artificial means. It takes strength not to use performance-enhancing drugs. High school sports help give today's young people the strength and character they need to reject performance-enhancing drugs. At the Illinois High School Association, we're committed to making sure that today's high school athletes understand the dangers of using performance-enhancing drugs. This message is brought to you by the Illinois High School Association, inviting student athletes, parents, and fans alike to challenge yourself and help bring out the best in our high schools and communities.
Los Boreales de Aurora regresan a SportsTownChicago.com. Sintonicen y apoyen a sus Boreales en su primera temporada en la United Premier Soccer League. Escuchen cada partido aquí en SportsTownChicago.com, patrocinado por el Beyond Air Network.
Hi, I'm Antonio Blaney, and this is your exclusive home for the Windy City Bulls. SportsTownChicago.com.
I came to Illinois Media School because I want to give back to the current students. It's something that really means a lot to me as an instructor, as a mentor, because I've been in this business for over 20 years. So it meant a lot to me to be able to come back and just teach some of the tricks of the trade to the students here at Illinois Media School. I'm Jonathan Hood from SiriusXM NBA Radio and ESPN Radio from the Illinois Media School campus in Lombard, and I am IMS.
Hi, it's Frankie Robinson. The Illinois Media School, formerly the Illinois Center of Broadcasting, provides hands-on broadcasting and online media training in fully equipped radio and TV studios and web-based computer labs. The instructional staff consists of broadcast media and professionals like myself with many years of broadcast and online media experience. I've watched some of my former students get jobs and excel in the industry. Upon graduation, students are well prepared to enter the broadcast media industry. Check out our campus in Chicago and Lombard and visit beonair.com. That's beonair.com to learn how to get started.
Andrew is on the JV tennis team, whose season is over. The varsity team is in the state tournament and still practicing. Practices are open to anyone on the team, JV or varsity. Why will Andrew go to practice even though he doesn't have to? When students participate in IHSA activities, they learn the values and skills necessary to get ahead in today's competitive world. So don't just go to school, go beyond with the IHSA.
The Illinois High School Association. Challenge yourself.
You may think that performance-enhancing drugs can help you hit the ball harder, help you throw the ball farther, make you bigger, stronger, faster, and more attractive to scouts. But performance-enhancing drugs won't make you a champion. To do that, you have to challenge yourself. At the Illinois High School Association, we're committed to making sure that today's high school athletes understand the dangers of using performance-enhancing drugs. This message is brought to you by the Illinois High School Association, inviting student athletes, parents, and fans alike to challenge yourself and help bring out the best in our high schools and communities.
What is the IHSA? For more than 100 years, the Illinois High School Association and member schools have provided opportunities for students to participate in interscholastic athletics and activities, which produce vital education benefits.
Did you know the IHSA offers statewide championship series in 14 sports for boys and girls and sponsors statewide championships in 7 non-athletic activities? Did you know the IHSA licenses more than 10,000 contest officials in 13 different sports and that more than 300,000 students participate in IHSA sports and activities every year? Did you know activity programs only account for 1 to 3% of the overall education budget in a school? Did you know the nation's first sportsmanship mascot was created by the IHSA in 1997 with the birth of Attitude? Did you know students who participate in activity programs tend to have higher grades, better attendance, lower dropout rates, and fewer discipline problems than students that don't participate? Did you know activity programs provide valuable lessons for practical life situations, teamwork, self-discipline, time management, dealing with adversity, and communication skills?
Now that you know, get in the game. Be a fan and join the fun. Support your local high school programs.
This message has been brought to you by the IHSA. Challenge yourself.
SportsTownChicago.com is your home for exciting Chicago Dogs baseball. Catch the Dogs in action this weekend as they take on the Fargo-Moorhead Redhawks. Games Friday and Saturday night starting at 7:05 and Sunday afternoon at 1:05. Right here on SportsTownChicago.com.
And welcome back to the Sportstown Chicago studios here in Lombard, Illinois. And what we're going to be talking about now is hometown Chicago baseball. Starting off, I don't know, do you want to start with yours or mine?
Yours or mine? That'd be a cool segment name that we could go off with. No, let's start. For once, let's actually I think for the only time this year, we're going to be talking about how yours is struggling how much more than mine is right now. So I think that is something I never thought I'd say this year. But yeah, for those of you who can't dispel what we're talking about, yours, talking about Nick's being his Chicago Cubs and, of course, my Chicago White Sox. Just one of the many things that me and Nick tend to disagree about here on the Nick and Rob show.
One of the few, basically, actually, because we agree on a lot.
We do tend to agree on a lot, but it's funny because, like, outside of, like, the realm of this, like, nice little studio here, we have a fair share of disagreements. Yeah. I feel like, you disagree with me. Like, I can tell by, like, your body language because you're, like, too nice of the guy.
To actually say it to your face.
To actually say it to my face, but, like, I encourage you. Like, I want you to, like, burn my self-esteem, like, to the ground. Like
the person I am, though, man.
It's a person. It's a person that like I inspire you. Like I aspire you to be. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But I'm sure what everyone in Chicago is aspiring the Cubs to be is once again a postseason team. And after this 4-game series that they split the San Diego Padres, their struggles are starting to show up again. And once their struggles again, is their starting pitching. And their starting pitching showed once again yesterday as John Lester could not make it into the 6th inning as he went 5 innings, got roughed up, gave up 5 earned runs to a bottom 3 offense in all of baseball in the San Diego Padres. So, Nick, just give me your little assessment on this 4-game series with the San Diego Padres and what the Cubs are really struggling with right now.
Well, I mean, I will say this. The hitting actually is not the issue, which a lot of people thought could be the issue as it was early on. Like, they weren't hitting very well. I mean, Baez was on, but Bryant and Rizzo were struggling early on. And
Bryant had to deal with injuries, but yeah.
And Bryant is dealing with injuries. So, I mean, he gets the pass on that. And Rizzo's picked it up since then. But yes, the starting pitching has been the issue for most of the year. And of this series, though, I mean, really, Lester was the only bad start of the series. If you look at it, I mean, it was more the other loss was more of a bullpen loss, and that was more of the issue. Is the bullpen was kind of shaky.
Well, the loss of Brandon Morrow, how absolutely dominant he's been this year has been great. But I mean, the addition of Brandon Kinsler from Washington, was going to be a nice addition to the bullpen to suffice for the loss of Brandon Morrow for the rest of the year. But no, I agree with you. I think that the bullpen, a couple of games in this series had to do with the bullpen, especially Rosario and Edwards having to do with the one from yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Rosario has been a great great story for the Cubs so far this year.
He's done a really nice season.
He's done a very nice job for them. But, I mean, the guy got tagged for 4 earned runs yesterday out of the bullpen. And 4 earned runs to a starter will hurt your ERA, but for a guy that only comes in for 1 inning a game, that kills your ERA. But it brought his ERA up to 3 out of the bullpen. That's how great he has been this year.
I think his ERA up to this point has been under 2. I mean, he had like a 1.9 or a 1.8 ERA for most of the season so far.
But then again, you also have to throw up cautionary flags and say that bullpen guys with their ERAs, don't pay attention to ERAs in the bullpen. Because it really differs, and there's a bunch of different factors that go into it. But I mean, just sticking strictly on the Cubs here, I personally don't think. I mean, through 162-game marathon, which is really what it is. I mean, even when you're running a regular marathon, I mean, there's certain points where you're going to feel great, like okay, like I'm going to make it through this. This is a great stretch for me. And then there's other words like I can't feel my legs. Like I need to go to like the ER like right now. Like I can't breathe. And the Cubs aren't in the I can't breathe spot yet. They're not hitting that spot.
Just in a rough patch.
They're just in a rough patch. Yeah, they're just treading water really at this point. I mean, obviously the Milwaukee Brewers are on their heels at a game and a half.
Always.
And the St. Louis Cardinals and the Pittsburgh Pirates are fighting for that number 3 spot, and they're staying competitive. They're staying well enough in it, to still be talked about in the conversation for knocking the Cubs down a couple of pegs. But I think come September, they're going to be spoilers, but I think the Milwaukee Brewers, I'm a huge fan of the Brew Crew. But I think that they're going to be a legitimate, contender for the NL Central this year. I really do. But I think the Cubs really have to get their health together. But most importantly, they have to get their starting pitching in order. I think the addition of Cole Hamels is going to be the most unsung move from the trade deadline. I think it helps the Cubs tremendously. You saw him turn in a great start. Struck out 9, I think, over 5 innings. He turned in a great first start. He's starting the opener tonight out in Kansas City. So I think there's some really, really good things that can be happening for the Cubs. And the Cubs are also going through a stretch here. I believe in their next 3 opponents, they are all under 500 teams. So if they want to gain some separation from the Milwaukee Brewers, the time to do it is now. And that's obviously how you gain ground, is to beat up the teams you're supposed to beat up on.
Yeah, no, this next little stretch, if I'm not mistaken, they are playing Kansas City, and then they're going to play they have to play Washington after Kansas City.
Okay,
that'll be an interesting series after this Kansas City series. But in this Kansas City series, they need to sweep them. Like this, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
This isn't a do or die series.
But I'm not saying that there's that. But I mean, when you're playing against a team as bad as Kansas City is, I mean, especially now that they've kind of just
but I'm saying, sweeping, I mean, the Cubs going out in Kansas. I mean, whenever you play on the road, and they don't have an off day, even though Monday is supposed to be kind of like your getaway day, in terms of that, they don't have the off day today. So I'm just saying, traveling, heading out last night, arriving in Kansas City sometime this morning, although it's a night game tonight. So, I mean, they should be pretty refreshed on anything. Anytime you play on the road, I really don't care who you are, especially in baseball. The home team does have the advantage, in my opinion, because I mean, if the game's tied going into the bottom of the 9th, home team automatically has the advantage. You score one, game's over, baby. You win. So I mean, you always have that hometown advantage. But yes, I do agree with you. They do need to take at least 2 out of 3 from the Royals there. If we come back here next Monday and we're talking about the Cubs and they lost 2 out of 3 or they get swept by the Royals, if I'm Joe Maddon, I'm starting to settle a couple of red flags off of my head. It's not like getting taken 2 out of 3. It's not like getting beaten by the Dodgers, or it's not like it's, getting beaten by the Phillies this year with how good they've been, or a team like that. I mean, like you said, the Royals have been, a piss poor team, this entire season.
Yeah, no, and it's going to start with can Hamels really come off of that awesome start? And can he keep it going now at Kansas City? I would hope to see maybe 6 or 7 innings.
My biggest question, do you know when Yu Darvish is coming back?
I don't think the Cubs even know when he's coming back.
I mean, it was scheduled to be the end of July, and now we're here into the first week of August, and we don't even have any rehab starts set for him yet. So, I mean, it's just, he's a huge question mark right now, as long as, I mean, that's pretty much just been the story of the 2018 Cubs has been their health. But, I mean, they've had some guys like David Bodie,
He's had
we
some
were
really good games.
we were talking about Randy Rosario out of the bullpen, as a guy who's really stepped up. They've had
Bodie has been the main guy to really come up out of the minors. I mean, he's been called up like 4 or 5 times this year, and every single time he gets called up, he comes up and he slugs the ball.
We know all about Mike Montgomery, but I mean, he stepped in huge situations as a spot starter to take over he took over for Chatwood before they acquired Hamels.
Now he's got the rotation spot instead of Chatwood too, Wes. I mean, that's
which he's going to lose to as soon as Darvish comes back.
Yeah, he will.
But but the huge thing, I mean, just the theme of this episode today, it just seems like we've been talking about depth literally everywhere, whether it's the Bears or the Cubs. But I mean, just for the Cubs, if I had to pose a question for you, Nick, right now, on a scale from like 1 to 10, if you're Joe Madden and you're sitting, in your comfy, manager's chair in your office, just like that right now. I'll play the part. Just get right into character for me as I'm asking this. How nervous are you about the Milwaukee Brewers as of August the 6th on a scale from 1 to 10?
I'm pretty dang nervous, to be honest with you.
Are you really?
Absolutely. Did you see the moves they made at the trade deadline?
You've won the division the last 3 years. You're a World Series champion. Did you see the moves they made at the trade deadline?
Well,
I'm not saying, but I'm just, okay, I'll let you go into it. Go ahead.
They added Moustakas. They added Jonathan Scope. Okay? Jonathan Scope, granted, before this month was god-awful. This dude was
he had a breakout Silver Slugger year last year.
But yes, before this month, he was absolutely awful. And then this month, he took off. I'm pretty sure I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know him kinda because he is on my fantasy team. Don't get me wrong.
I was literally gonna say the only way you know these types of things is because if they are on your fantasy team or if they're on someone else's fantasy team kicking your you know what. Yeah, exactly.
He has at least 8 or 9 home runs in this last month with 20 plus RBIs.
That doesn't surprise me. Knowing Jonathan Scope
killed the ball. I mean, but before that though, I mean, he's been just absolutely god awful. It was bad. And I mean, that's and the fact that he just turned a switch like that. I mean, I was hoping he was going to, obviously, because he's on my fantasy team. But I was hoping.
How's your fantasy team doing this year, by the way? I haven't asked that for a while.
I think I'm like in 3rd, I want to say, 2nd or 3rd.
And you're in a 12-team league? No, 10-team. You're in a 10-team league. 10. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was talking about that. Yeah, 10-team league. But anyways, okay, Jonathan Scope, go ahead.
But, I mean, this guy is going to help this Milwaukee lineup almost immediately. The only issue I see with that they're going to have an issue with is what the Cubs had an issue with in the last couple of years before they started dealing people away. They have so many guys where guys are going to have to sit up on the bench. Because right now that infield, it is packed. You look at it, you have Moustakas, you have Arcia, I think, right? Still,
you have Arcia. You have Arcia at short. Yeah, I mean, you have
still got Scope. You have Travis Shaw.
Travis Shaw. They've started a lot at second base.
Who was the guy that just was first base? Exactly. Yep. So I mean, you have so much, and without a DH in the NL, it's gonna hurt a little bit here.
But here's the thing: when you're a manager, I mean, that's what separates good and great managers. See, when you're looking in a tunnel vision point of view, like what you're doing right now, you're getting flustered, over there talking about when you should really be even kicking back further in your chair and saying that, man, I got an abundance of options here. I don't know too many managers that are like, oh my God, I have so much talent. I don't know what to do with all of it. I mean, it's just a matter of Craig Counsell having to mix and match, and that's what baseball is nowadays. I mean, you see guys out there, I've seen it enough with the White Sox this year. I've seen Charlie Tilson out there, hitting, 220 or whatever it may be. He's not with the White Sox anymore. But because there's a right-handed pitcher out there, compared to a guy like, I can't even name a good outfielder for the Sox this year that's outside of Avisail Garcia.
There you go. Yep.
That's, I mean, Rick Renneria Rick Renneria having the averages, just that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that people just try to play the averages. They try to play the splits, so having an abundance of talent, and especially guys with left and right-handed, a good balance of that, is just great for any lineup and for any team. But for the Milwaukee Brewers, it's the same narrative as the Chicago Cubs right now, and that is starting pitching.
Yeah.
Starting pitching is their biggest thing and the biggest thing that they need to address in terms of, not because what I like to see them have a bona fide number one ace in the rotation. Yes, it obviously helps. My question is because they didn't pull through at the end of last year, is that are they going to be able to compete in a pennant race by September and not burn out like they did last year? Is Chase Anderson, Junior Guerra, are these guys that I can really rely on, to really give me that must-need win at home, on a Wednesday night when the Cubs won, earlier in a day game at Wrigley Field when they're gaining even more ground away from us? I need a stopper in that rotation that I know that I can rely on, and I don't know if the Milwaukee Brewers can give me that rotation. But what I know they can give me is out of their bullpen. And their bullpen has probably been the best in baseball this year, obviously with Josh Hader, Jeremy Jeffress, Corey Knebel, amongst others in that bullpen. That has been what's been keeping them in this race with the Chicago Cubs this year. And then obviously the acquisitions of Christian Yelich and Lorenzo Cain, and then the breakout year of Jesus Aguilar.
Yeah, and I'll agree that I'm surprised that they didn't just decide to try and bolster that rotation. There was so many rumors about, we're going to go after Syndergaard, we're going to go after DeGrom, and Mets. There's no way in hell they're going to get rid of those guys.
They were a finalist for Chris Archer.
Yeah, I know, and the fact he ended up with Pittsburgh, I was kind of.
I was
like,
that.
I don't know why the heck.
No, the reason why I loved it is because Pittsburgh is always so cheap and always so unwilling to move their young talent. And they just got rid of Austin Meadows, a guy that they kept in the minors for 5 or 6 years, who was supposed to be the second coming of Andrew McCutchen once he was gone, which he is, and he was hitting 300. He's producing better, than Gregory Polanco, out there. You
dealt him away.
And you dealt him away. And Glass now, as awful as he was, he still has great stuff, and he's still a young kid. So I think the Tampa Bay Rays right now, I think they're sitting pretty, and they made some excellent under-the-radar moves at the deadline as well. And as much as I'd like to talk about that, I'd like to talk about the team who just handed them 3 straight L's over this past weekend, and that's the Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, and the White Sox, I'll tell you, man, that the 5-game winning streak, huh? That's something, right?
It's I can't believe I'm saying this, but I never thought I'd use the word happy in the Chicago White Sox in the same sentence at all this year, but it's happening for me right now. It's nice to talk about. It doesn't mean anything, obviously. If anything, it actually hurts because it's going to hurt our draft position come the end of the year because that's all that the Sox are playing for right now. But, some things that I'm starting to notice is that Giolito was starting to turn a corner a little bit. Ronaldo Lopez had a dominant start against Kansas City. For some reason, against Kansas City and Texas, he dominates everyone else. He's very suspect against. But, there's just been time and time again where it's people have just been stepping up lately. Although not all things have been positive, Moncada has been horrendous over the stretch. I really don't want to pop a lung here and yell about how awful Yohan Moncada has been this year and how anti-Moncada I am. So I'll leave that for another time. But just talking about this 5-game winning streak on more positive things, as you mentioned, Daniel Palka has been great.
Yes, he has.
Over the course of this last week, he's had 3 home runs. All 3 of them have been tying or go-ahead, and 2 of them have been pitch hits. And yesterday's was even more impressive. It was a go-ahead 2-run blast in the 9th inning. It was about a 750-foot shot out to right center field. It was a tremendous blast. And he struck out 4 previous times. We were talking about a little bit of mental toughness earlier about Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. Imagine that in baseball. You're playing this game already for 3 hours. You struck out 4 times. You just want to go back into the clubhouse, go home, just forget about today. And you're, oh, God, I got to come up and hit again after I haven't even touched the ball today. And then you do that. That's really impressive to me. So I think that was a really cool, positive thing to look at. The reemergence of Abreu after the horrendous stretch he went through for about 2 months, and then seeing Avi Garcia really come to his own with his power stroke this year, now that he's fully healthy again, is something that I've also really liked to see.
So, as a Cubs fan, obviously seeing all our prospects come up pretty quick, at least somewhat quick. with the exception maybe of Almora.
You mean my prospects?
No, I'm talking about ours, the Cubs. So now
who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Brian, man.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking. Okay,
Brian Schwarber, all these guys have come up through the system quick. So now going to the White Sox system. How fast do you think some of these White Sox guys are actually going to come up to really help the Sox go to this next level?
Next year. Unfortunately, that's just the harsh reality of the situation is that it's going to be next year. Rick Hahn and crew have made it extremely evident that they don't see or feel the need to bring them up this year. And although Eloy Jimenez is literally almost hitting 400 down at AAA, Michael Kopech has been just bulldozing, AAA hitters for the better part of the last month and a half. Has really just checked off all the boxes, as what Rick Hahn likes to say. I don't know what else more they have to prove. They don't have anything else to prove down the minors. They're playing in a league that they're above of. They are major league ready talents. We've known that for a couple of months now for both of these guys, and it's just a matter of service time. It's just that cruel mistress in Major League Baseball is service time. It's why you brought up Chris Bryant. It's an excellent
that's
point.
Exactly why they waited on him for a little bit.
Although I'm a Sox fan, I mean, I remember when Chris Bryant was first brought up. He's brought up on May 1st. The first opportunity that they had to bring up Chris Bryant, they brought him up.
Yep.
Yeah, they brought him up immediately. So, I mean, just looking at that, I think it's going to be something for the Chicago White Sox to really question themselves with going forward, because in a way, I think you really have to make it clear to those guys, to Eloy and Michael down there at AAA, you have to call these guys or sit down and have a conversation with them and be like, hey, we really want to be patient with you guys. We want you guys to be here for longer, sustained dominance. We know you guys are major league level ready right now. And, I would literally get on the phone and call and apologize to
maybe they might have already done that already. I mean, they might have already let them know about that. I mean, who knows? We don't know, obviously.
I know for a fact that they didn't, because it's a disservice to the other 23 guys in that clubhouse, in that AAA clubhouse in Charlotte, that would not be getting that same phone call. So I mean, it's just something to really not really pay attention to. Would they be a part of a September 40-man roster call-up?
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly, maybe
chance.
one of them. I think Eloy would be here over Kopech.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the few people that would rather see Kopech over Jimenez.
Just to see what he's got.
Because I love watching pitching. I'm a guy, when I watch baseball, I could sit up and kick my feet up for 3 hours. I want to see a pitcher's duel. If you blow me out 5-0 in the first inning, especially if you have the Chicago White Sox offense this year, I know that there's a 99% chance we're not coming back in the game. So the game's already over for me in the first 20 minutes. That's why I like to see pitchers duels, and that's what I think Kopech could bring on the south side.
Yeah, and I agree with the fact that I think, next year is going to be the year that you're going to see these major names come up. And I really wish they would have called up Eloy and Kopech earlier this season. I would have liked to see them when they got maybe like in the June or something like that to give these guys a look. I mean, especially with the way, like you said, Eloy is playing at an incredible level in this minor league system. I mean, he is putting up numbers that nobody else is coming close to, except maybe Vlad Guerrero Jr. up in with the Blue Jays system.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking hockey still in my mind.
A couple more months for that, but
yeah, I know. Very sad.
But I understand where you're talking about, where you're coming from on that. But I mean, like I said, service time is really the name of the game.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But I mean, if I had to just ask you for this, it's not even asking anything, because I want to go into one thing before I go to the other here. Dylan Cease, the other part of that pay. It was a 4-player deal for Jose Quintana. This is something that Cubs fans are really starting to regret right now, which feels just so gosh darn good to just sit back and say that. But anyways, I had to get that off my chest. But looking at Dylan Cease with AA Birmingham, if you've paid attention, you've seen Cease. He's been fantastic for the Barons this year. He's a guy that'll probably if he progresses, because he's going to start next year at AAA.
Yeah, he'll be a couple years away from them.
There's a good chance that he'll be up by the end of 2019, barring injury. And I have to say barring injury in baseball, because God, if the Sox minor league guys just been demolished by injuries this year, I can just go on, and I really don't want to, because it really upsets me. But Cease is the other guy to keep on. I think Cease can have just as big as an impact as Kopech can at the major league level. I think he's been that dominant, or I think he could be that dominant when that time comes. But transitioning from one thing to another here as we come back here on the Nick and Rob Show in Sportstown Chicago, going from the diamond to the hardwood, we're going to be talking about teams that we're going to be looking at in the upcoming NBA season that are going to rise or fall. And then LeBron James making headlines again, but this time for more positive news as he opens up his I Promise school in his hometown of Akron. That and much more to come here on the Nick and Rob Show in Sportstown Chicago.
The reason I'm out here at the Illinois Media School is the radio business, while there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of stations, the people in the business is a small, tight-knit group, and I really enjoy the opportunity of being able to give back, connect, share the experiences I have, and actually learn from the students as well. My name is Dustin Rhodes. I'm the executive producer with the Mully and Hamley Show on 670 The Score, and I am IMS.
Hi, it's Frankie Robinson. The Illinois Media School, formerly the Illinois Center of Broadcasting, provides hands-on broadcasting and online media training in fully equipped radio and TV studios and web-based computer labs. The instructional staff consists of broadcast media and professionals like myself with many years of broadcast and online media experience. I've watched some of my former students get jobs and excel in the industry. Upon graduation, students are well prepared to enter the broadcast media industry. Check out our campus in Chicago and Lombard and visit beonair.com. That's beonair.com to learn how to get started.
Time to kick off your career in radio or TV broadcasting at the Illinois Media School's downtown Chicago campus. Call us at 312-884-8000 or visit 530 South State Street to learn how you can make your dreams of being on television and radio a reality. Don't take my word for it. Check out what some industry professionals said about the Illinois Media School.
Jonathan Hood, ESPN 1000.
People often ask me, Hoodie, how can I be a sports radio guy like you? I tell them it takes drive and determination, and you need to learn how it all works. You can learn to be a sports talk show host, a producer, do play-by-play, and shoot and edit video. You'll have a chance to get internships at stations where you can tap into the knowledge of industry pros. With job placement assistance, you can start your new career in 1 year. It's a great school to get the hands-on training you need for a broadcasting career, doing what you love. They have affordable tuition and financial aid for those who qualify. So don't waste another minute. Go to beonair.com/Chicago Sports. That's beonair.com/Chicago Sports.
Hi, I'm Rob Rose, and I'm one of the instructors here at Illinois Media School. I've been teaching here at the school since 2010, as a matter of fact, between Lombard and Chicago campuses. This is definitely the place to come. It's going to prepare you for absolutely everything that you need to know about the broadcast industry. We're talking radio, television, web, podcasting, absolutely everything. Get in touch with the school and take advantage of it. Make it your career. Do it now. I'm Rob Rose, nights on 100.3 WSHE in Chicago, and I am IMS.
Aurora Borealis Soccer is back on SportsTownChicago.com. Catch Borealis as they join the United Premier Soccer League this season. Tune in for every game live, powered by the Beyond Air Network on SportsTownChicago.com.
High school sports is here, and SportsTownChicago.com, we are ready to provide the best high school sports live coverage all across Northern Illinois. From the first kickoff of high school football to the final spike of high school volleyball, we at SportsTownChicago.com are ready to bring you high school sports live. SportsTownChicago.com and STC Friday Night Lights in a league of our own.
Los Boreales de Aurora regresan a SportsTownChicago.com. Sintonizan y apoyen a sus Boreales en su primera temporada en la United Premier Soccer League. Escuchen cada partido aquí en SportsTownChicago.com, patrocinado por el Beyond Air Network.
I came to Illinois Media School because I want to give back to the current students. It's something that really means a lot to me as an instructor, as a mentor, because I've been in this business for over 20 years. So it meant a lot to me to be able to come back and just teach some of the tricks of the trade to the students here at Illinois Media School. I'm Jonathan Hood from Sirius XM NBA Radio and ESPN Radio from the Illinois Media School campus in Lombard, and I am IMS.
Hi, I'm Antonio Blaney, and this is your exclusive home for the Windy City Bulls. SportsTownChicago.com.
SportsTownChicago.com is your home for exciting Chicago Dogs baseball. Catch the Dogs in action this weekend as they take on the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks. Games Friday and Saturday night starting at 7:05 and Sunday afternoon at 1:05, right here on SportsTownChicago.com.
This is your SportsTownChicago.com update, and I am Rob Hill. Over this past weekend, there's a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. On the diamond yesterday, the White Sox completed a 3-game sweep of the Tampa Bay Rays down in St. Petersburg, Florida, as Daniel Palka proved to be the deciding factor as he blasted a go-ahead 2-run homer in the 9th inning, his 17th home run of the season, as the White Sox went on to win 8-7. Back home on the north side, the Cubs split their 4-game series with the San Diego Padres as they lost 10-6. John Lester was once again roughed up as he went 5 innings and allowed 5 earned runs, as he has not recorded a quality start in nearly a month. The Sox begin their series with the New York Yankees tonight, as do the Chicago Cubs with the Kansas City Royals. On the gridiron, the Bears had their first preseason game of the season as they fell to the Baltimore Ravens 17-16. I'm Rob Hill, and this has been your SportsTownChicago.com update.
Bounced up the middle and through, and that's how the Red Sox have walked it off tonight. Wow! Andrew Benintendi has cemented his status as one of the biggest villains in the Bronx that this rivalry has seen in a long time.
And that was the voice of Matt Vasgersian on ESPN.com, or ESPN. That was a pretty good call, if I'm not mistaken. Honestly, it was pretty good.
One of the few good calls that a lot of people on Twitter thought that he had last night. Did you hear the controversy of the one that he had? I believe it was the inning before. Miguel Andujar for the New York Yankees was up at the plate, and this was when the Yankees were up 3-1. And he said, Andujar steps up in the box, represents the tying run. Now, Nick, I've never been really that great at math, and I graduated Bartlett High School in 2017 with a GPA of 2.8, with the 2.8 GPA. But can you please explain to me how you can possibly tie up a game when you're already up by 2 runs?
I think it's a little difficult.
It's a little difficult to prove that. Okay, all right. I just wanted a second opinion on that. All right, fantastic. But no, yeah, Matty V, not one of his best overall games, but that was one of the best overall games of 2018 last night. I don't know if you saw on ESPN.com, but the odds for the Yankees to come, for the Red Sox to come back last night over the Yankees, 14,000 to 1. That's where the bet's going on in Vegas when they entered the 9th inning last night. So that was absolutely incredible. An inning that was set up due to poor defense once again by the middle infield of the New York Yankees, and then of course some timely hitting by potential MVP candidates and Mookie Betts and JD Martinez, and then Andrew Benintendi setting everyone home later on that evening. So, but the biggest story is that the Boston Red Sox have separated themselves even farther from their division rival, as now they lead the AL East by a stunning 9.5 games. So, Nick, just dissect the series for me. What does this mean for the Red Sox and the Yankees right now?
Well, I mean, it's great news for the Red Sox, honestly, because, I mean, right now they have a nice gap. I mean, the only issue with them now is, I mean, it's pretty sure Sale's on the DL, correct?
He is on the DL.
So, I mean, that's gonna be something
for sure.
It's gonna be short, but I mean, it hurts them to miss a couple.
They have him. Do you know what he's on the DL with?
No idea.
Shoulder inflammation, but I'm pretty much me seeing him pitch on the south side for what Chris has always had is it's been tired arm, or it's just been arm fatigue, which is what I think he's going through right now. But I mean, this team is just clicking on all cylinders with the Red Sox.
Yeah, and it's a big loss for the Yankees right now. I mean, this whole series was bad from them because, I mean, you look at especially this last one. I mean, they just couldn't close out a game, especially with the bullpen that they have now. Like, they have 3, if not 4, bona fide closers in that bullpen, being Britton, Chapman, Betances, and Robertson, and they blow a save like that. I mean, especially with Chapman being one of the, if not one of the better closers in the game. I mean, and you can't close out the game like that when you have a 3-run lead. It's just a bad look. And I mean, for them now, pretty sure they have a 2.5 game lead in the wild card over the second place team.
Over the Seattle Mariners, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
over the Oakland A's now. Wow, over the Oakland A's.
And I mean,
oh my God,
them and the Mariners are coming hard, and they're not. I mean, they're going to be trying to catch up.
Not the Mariners. The Mariners have been plummeting from,
But I think
they've been plummeting hard.
But that's, I think, because they lost Paxton for a little.
They've lost. They've lost 5. They've lost 6 straight.
But so I think that with the way that lineup is built, they'll turn it around. But they will come.
Are you talking about the Yankees or the Mariners?
I'm talking about the Mariners.
The Mariners, yeah, they get Robbie Cano back on the 14th.
Exactly. So I mean, they will turn it around, and they're going to go hard for that wild card spot. And the A's is barring any injury, they're going to go.
But sticking with the New York Yankees here, I mean, if you're a New York Yankees fan, or if you're a New York Yankees player inside of that clubhouse, what are you saying to yourself right now? Because obviously there's still a very good outlook, and you're optimistic that you are going to make the postseason, but clearly you don't want to play a 162-game schedule just to play a 1-game playoff game that may just send you home. So do you think that there's any possibility, any realm of possibility that the Yankees might give the Red Sox a little bit of a battle for an AL East crown?
I mean, absolutely, because I mean they play in the same division, so they're going to play each other a few more series from now. I mean, it's going to be still a dogfight down the stretch, especially I mean if the Yankees can pull 2 out of 3 out of like the last couple series they play against them. I mean, there's more than enough time for them to make up this 8.5 game gap.
I think they're dead in the water.
You really think so?
I think the Yankees are dead in the water. In terms of for the AL East crown, I think they're absolutely dead in the water. I mean, today's August 6th. Yeah, they still have about a month and a half left to play. And I don't have the exact number of times that they're going to, play for the remainder of the season. I'm sure it's going to creep somewhere towards the double-digit mark. But, I mean, you had to, although they were playing out in Boston, you had to have gone in there to try at least split. That would have made Aaron Boone extremely happy, even though Aaron Boone, as we've seen this year as the Yankees manager, he's a pretty optimistic dude. He's even had very optimistic words, and he said he even saw some quote-unquote bright spots from his team in this series. Not sure what bright spots he was seeing, because I didn't think anyone else saw too many.
There wasn't too many.
But from the Yankees' perspective, looking from them going forward, I think the biggest thing that they're going to have to figure out, they've been trying to figure out a lot of holes in their starting rotation. Sonny Gray has not proven out to be the guy that we all thought that he was going to be. It looks like Lance Lynn for the foreseeable future is going to be taking his rotation spot.
Yes, he is.
But on the plus side of things, on the flip side, you've had guys like obviously CC Sabathia, Masahiro Tanaka have really been stepping up very well for them. So, and then obviously their lineup, they need Aaron Judge back. They need to get their health back. That's really been the name of the game for the Yankees. And if they don't get that, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but man, the Oakland A's are coming really hard.
Yeah, it's going to be scary to see how this is going to all play out down the stretch. Because I mean, if the Yankees can't figure it out and the A's go by them, I mean, again, like I said, the Mariners aren't going to be going away. So I mean, it's going to be close. I mean, we don't talk enough about the Boston Reds. I mean, obviously they're one of the best teams in baseball.
They're on pace for their best record in franchise history.
And I mean, and obviously franchise that's been around for pretty decent amount of time
since the start of time.
Exactly.
Pretty much since
So
baseball.
Yeah, it is. If you couldn't hear the sarcastic, decent amount of time. But I mean, like, but I mean, they're going to. I'm pretty sure that the odds makers put them as now the favorite to win the World Series over the Houston Astros. They jumped them over them recently. So, I mean, that's
power rankings change every week and everything.
But I mean, with odds, the odds have always, almost this entire year, have been with Houston. So, I mean, the fact that finally they got jumped by Boston, I mean, they see something. I mean, obviously this team is built with a ton of studs. I mean, JD Martinez is playing exactly the way they paid him to be. I mean, Mookie has been incredible. And then, I mean, you look at what Mr. Benintendi's been doing has been incredible as well.
Those 3 guys that you just named, that's why I have my 3 fingers up here, is because they have 3 viable AL MVP candidates. And I'm also throwing Benintendi into the conversation too, because it's not about what you just do with numbers-wise. It's also about what you do in terms of also play out in the outfield and as well as, being responsible for value for your team for where you are in your division. But transitioning over into that, talking about how dominant the Red Sox have been in the AL. He's recording their 78th win already as we entered today on Monday. 79. Their 79th win as we entered into Monday on August 6th here from the Illinois Media Schools here in Lombard, Illinois. So just talking a little bit about that, your AL MVP candidates as of today, who would they be? If you had to have, you could either compromise.
We just go with a winner.
How about we just? Do you have a top 3? Do you have a main guy that's a runaway guy for you? Because it's definitely not a runaway. But
I wouldn't say it's a runaway. I know, but I mean, I do have the guy that I think will ultimately win it. Because I really don't have a list, unfortunately. I just do have the winners of everything. But with the guy I think that's going to pull away with it is, I mean, Mookie. To be honest, I really think he's going to really just keep up with the way he's going. I mean, this season alone, I mean, he's had a .342 batting average. I'm pretty sure he leads the AL in batting average currently. 26 home runs, 58 RBI, 21 stolen bases, OBP over 420. I mean, the dude has been raking. I mean, it has been incredible. I mean, even with the guy, and it helps. I mean, obviously being in the lineup with players like Benintendi and JD, because you can't pitch around one guy to get to another one. Because I mean, you'd be walking the bases loaded to open the game basically if you wanted to do that. I mean, that's really what would end up coming down to. So I mean, I think he's going to end up winning the AL MVP.
That's fantastic. I really appreciate that because you just helped me set up the point for why why my point is going to create who I think is going to win the MVP this year. Thank you for creating that point for me, because I was just going to get to that. Well, the thing being is that you just talked about protection in the lineup, and that's all the Red Sox have up and down their order. Their top 4 hitters in that lineup, primarily being, Betts, Benintendi, Martinez, and Moreland, provide excellent protection for one another, because, like I said, I really do think that they have 3 MVPs that hit right at the top of the order for them right there. But my MVP candidate is a guy who definitely was not snubbed the last 2 seasons. He's been top 3 in the AL MVP voting the last 2 seasons. Kind of similar to Mike Trout with Miguel Cabrera when Trout, broke into the league. He sat behind Cabrera, obviously won the Triple Crown. Then he just finished behind Miggy again in 2013. And then Trout finally broke through this first MVP campaign in 2014. And I'm proud to say your 2018 AL MVP candidate, I say this with such confidence, is going to be Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Indians, with how he has been so far this year. So like you just threw a couple of numbers at me, I'm going to throw some back at you. He's 2nd overall in WAR in Major League Baseball. He's 4th in on-base percentage, 3rd in slugging, 3rd in OPS, 1st in homers, tied with J.D. Martinez in the American League with 33. He's 2nd in stolen bases, and he is 1st overall in Major League Baseball in extra base hits with 65 on the year. Now, I understand that Mookie's numbers and JD's numbers are also out of this world. I understand that, which is why there has to be a separation between both parties. And the separation with that is exactly what you mentioned, is because of the protection. The lack of protection that Jose Ramirez has surrounding him helps the argument for his case. If you exclude Francisco Lindor with what obviously he's been doing this year, and Edwin Encarnacion is a great protection piece, but he's not having an Edwin Encarnacion type year. Now, with that being said, and obviously Yonder Alonso was also a nice piece to have, but the year that Jose Ramirez has been having is a historic season. He's on base for a historic extra base overall season. So with that being said, and culminating that the Indians have ran away with this division, I know they probably play in the weakest division in all of baseball. I understand that, but because they're going to lead to another AL Central crown, and because of his lack of protection, I think it's about time that Ramirez gets his due justice and gets his first AL MVP award.
You make a really good point, actually, with the whole protection thing. I wouldn't even have thought of Jose Ramirez, to be honest with you. He is kind of just flying under the radar. You got the big names getting talked about all the time, like Judge and all these players, but you really lose fact of the guy that playing in Cleveland. I will say that those numbers you threw out there, definitely puts him up as a candidate at least to get there. So I think we both have pretty good names in there.
I appreciate that, Nick. Thank you.
Who would you think would win the AL Cy Young, though? That's the other one that would be big.
I think the AL Cy Young is also it's a
tight race there.
It's a little bit of it. It's not nearly as tight as the AL MVP race, but
the Cy Young is
interesting.
Tight there.
But I think this guy is going to earn his 2nd Cy Young of his career, and I have Justin Verlander of the Houston Astros as my AL Cy Young Award winner. Just what JV has done this year for the Houston Astros has been pretty incredible. It seems like his career just went from a question mark out in Detroit when he was acquired last year by the Houston Astros, where he didn't even really want to go to Houston last year. He just wanted to get the hell out of Detroit. Yep. So, but the second that he started to go to Houston, he flipped the switch. His curveball became tighter again. He started to use more of his slider, and he returned to the Cy Young type of caliber pitcher that he used to be. So, yeah, just some numbers on this year for JV. 11-6, 2.19 ERA. And 204 strikeouts over 156 innings pitched. Just absolutely phenomenal and dominating numbers, surrounded by a dominating starting rotation set that the Houston Astros already possess.
Scary.
It's a very scary rotation, and he leads that pack. So, but I think what JV has done, he's the horse among horses. You have Garrett Cole and Dallas Keuchel, who are 2 other viable options that could be aces, in 90% of other rotations in baseball. So I think, to me, when I really sit back and think about it, it kind of is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and actually it really is, because I picked the exact same guy. You already went down the numbers, but you pointed out, he stands out among one of the best rotations in baseball right now. You look at what they have, being Garrett Cole, Keuchel, McCullers, what's his name, Morton.
Charlie Morton, yeah.
Those 5 have been Keuchel and McCullers haven't really been as dominant as the other 3. They're good pieces to have in that rotation. You wouldn't think Keuchel would be like a number 4 or number 5.
Yeah.
But it's just incredible how deep that rotation is, and Verlander stands out of that pack with the numbers he's put up. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and I really think, that's going to really put him over the top to win the Cy Young this year.
I definitely agree. Now, if we had to switch leagues here and just kind of flip the card over, your NL MVP candidate today would be.
I feel like you're going to hate me for this.
No, I'm going to agree with you on it because I already know where you're going with it. Yeah, I already agree with you.
Yeah, you do? Are you sure?
Yeah, do you want to say it on 3?
Yeah, ready? 1, 2,
3. Javi Baez.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep. So I really think Javi deserves it this year, the way he's really led this offense and honestly this defense, the way he plays, the flashy plays he has. I mean, early on it was kind of issuous a little bit. He still had the flashy plays, but he converted a lot of errors early on in the season. He's cleaned it up since then, and his offensive game has been solid through and through, it seems like, for the entire season. I mean, he's batting his highest batting average in major leagues since he ever came up. I mean, he's really just good. I mean, he's been playing really nicely with a 300 batting average, 24 homers, 86 RBI. I mean, I could throw the numbers at you, but I mean, he's been patient at the plate. His OBP isn't very great, but I mean, he's looking at more pitches. He's waiting a little bit more. He's not chasing everything that's thrown at him, no matter where it is. I mean, he's matured a little bit, and I think he deserves this MVP.
He's leading the National League in RBIs this year. Mm-hmm. He's completely taken his aggressive approach to play because once you get a guy like him, you can't change who he is. You can't take the player out of the player, if that makes any sense at all. You can't change him in the aspects that got to where he is today. So what he decided to do is, I got to use my aggressive approach on offense and defense as well, and use that to the best of my ability. He's hitting 300 on the season. He just has a 333 on base. So for 300 batting average, it's pretty great. That's not a great, but I mean, he makes up for it with his unbelievable production that he's had in the middle of the Cubs order. And I can't imagine where the Cubs would possibly be fighting. They'd be right around the Cardinals and the Pirates spot right now if it wasn't for the year that Javi Baez is having, the value that he's having for this team. Brian kind of being out for almost half the year that Rizzo's having, although he has turned it around since coming back off the All-Star break. I know he's been injured on and off this year as well. So, but I mean, just looking at those two guys right there, your two, productive players who are always viable MVP candidates every year. I mean, Baez literally came out of nowhere this year as a standout MVP candidate, and I think he's really running away with it the more that he just keeps producing for the Cubs this year. As you mentioned, in terms of his defense, obviously he's a human highlight reel. It seems like whenever you turn on ESPN and watch, top 10, highlight web gems, he always just seems to be featured on there. And he's a magician with the glove. He really is. But, I mean, obviously it's the play with his bat this year that's really surprised the whole world and everyone else.
Absolutely. And, I mean, he's always been that flashy, just play for the fans type guy. And he always has those great plays in the defensive side. But, I mean, his offense is always kind of, this game he's going to hit 4 for 5 for 2 home runs or something like that. And then all of a sudden the next game he's just going to strike out 4 times. This year he's kind of cleaned that up. And
exactly.
That's
an excellent point.
Yeah, and I mean, this year he's really become more consistent. And I mean, hopefully next season he keeps that going. But I mean, this year he definitely is my clear MVP winner.
Well, that's what you need to have to be an MVP is because, I mean, MVP is a very tricky thing, especially in baseball. I'm going to teach you some. I'm going to sit down and you got to get out your pen and paper for when we go into our Cy Young picks in the NL, because I'm going to do something a little unorthodox, because I'm going to bring this word called context into it and really bring up certain situations here. But I'll get to that in a second. But Baez is a good guy to use for the word context too, because of, like I mentioned, because of Bryant, because of Rizzo with the years that they're having, because of all the injuries that have belittled the Cubs this year. Javi Baez has propelled them to where they are now. The Cubs would be the Boston Red Sox of the National League if they had Baez plus what they were expecting out of Darvish, plus what they were expecting out of Bryant and Rizzo, like what they have the last 2 or 3 seasons, So with that being said, just to see where the Cubs are right now, they wouldn't be anywhere near they are right now without Baez, and that's where the whole Valley Park comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, so now switching from MVP to the Cy Young now, like you were just talking about, so who do you have?
Okay, so there's no pitcher that I love to watch more in Major League Baseball than Max Scherzer. And when you look at his numbers, and because of Kershaw's slight injury being down for a month and a half, and because Max has because Max has already won 2 in his career, him and Kershaw for the last couple of years, it seems like the last 5 or 6 years, they've always just gone head to head to see, okay, who's going to win it between the two of them. I'm going to bring a new guy into the equation here who happens to pitch within the same division as Max Scherzer as well. And here's why I'm going to do that. And this is going to belong to Philadelphia Phillies ace Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola on the year 12-3, 237 ERA, 148 innings pitched, 144 strikeouts, and a WHIP just under 1. And for those of you not knowing who WHIP is, it combines wins, hits, innings pitched. If you have a WHIP below 1,
walks, hits,
walks, hits, innings pitched. Yeah. Did I say wins?
Yeah,
you're correct. Walks, hits, innings pitched.
Like,
sorry. My mistake on that. But for those of you who don't know what that stat is, it's a pretty common stat. It's very misleading, but pretty much guys that have those that are at 1 or under 1 are very dominating pitchers. So let's go to Max Scherzer's numbers. 15-5, 233, 154 innings pitched, 210 strikeouts, and a WHIP of .91. Numbers all across the board are extremely comparable, but also slightly better than Nola's. So why would I possibly have, if we're just looking at strict numbers here, why would I possibly have Max Scherzer not above Aaron Nola? Well, just for the simple fact that overall in the year, not that this is Scherzer's fault, but because the Nationals, as of right now, are 6 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League East title. The Philadelphia Phillies have not been above 500 since 2011. They have not been in first place for this long since 2011. That's 7 years ago. And Aaron Nola, evolving as this ace that he has been, he ended the end of last year he had a very good end of last year in the second half, was one of the best pitchers in baseball at the second half of last year. He's really evolved and has taken that as an ace in a tough Philadelphia market, because you know just as well as I do, playing on the East Coast, Philadelphia, New York, Boston, you play in a very, very tough market where if you do not perform well, when they have high expectations of you, they boo the living crap out of you and really demoralize you. Nola has accepted that challenge, played on bad Phillies teams the past year or two. He has evolved into the ace of that staff and has taken it by himself. And the numbers are right there. They are Cy Young enough worthy. And the reason, because the Philadelphia Phillies are 63-48 right now, it's a huge part because of guys behind him can settle in. Jake Arrieta, the guy that they signed to, the former Cy Young Award winner that had a historic season with the Chicago Cubs, that helped them pitch to a World Series championship, isn't their ace. That guy's not the ace anymore. Aaron Nola is the ace of this team at 24 years of age, and he has taken that role from anyone that has stepped into that rotation. And you have to keep in mind, 2 years ago when they stepped into this, it could have been Jared Eichhoff. It could have been a multitude of guys that could have stepped in as the ace for the Phillies. They didn't really know when they were in this rebuilding phase, but it is a clear cut who the franchise pitcher is of this team and who should be the NL Cy Young winner of 2018.
I actually agree with you. You're probably surprised that I didn't pick Max Scherzer, but
thank you.
I actually agree. Aaron Nola probably deserves it more than Scherzer does, because the impact.
Scherzer though.
He's put up incredible numbers. He does it every year, but the impact that Nola's had on the Phillies is, that's what you want. As the Cy Young is basically the reason it is there is the best pitcher. So he, in my opinion, he has influenced his team enough to the point where he is the best pitcher. And that you put up the numbers already, so I can't read them like I usually do. But with that WHIP under 1, as a starting pitcher, especially, that's some good WHIP.
Yeah.
That is good.
I like that. That's some good WHIP.
That's some good WHIP.
That's some good cool
so,
WHIP.
And look at his batting average against as well.
That's a cool WHIP.
He's almost under 200 for batting average against. That's killer right there.
Yeah.
It's.
Well, if we're talking about pure stuff, there's no doubt that Scherzer has better stuff than Nola.
Yeah.
But no disrespect to Nola, he's got a great two-seam fastball. His curveball is devastating. The thing with Scherzer is that he's got 4, excellent pitches. He's got 4, top-tier pitches, something that Nola doesn't have. But just because you have to put things into proper context here of the situation. So even though MVP, what more baseball voters or more baseball writers are starting to realize when they determine these awards, because that's who decided these awards at the end of the year are baseball writers. And although some of them are extremely biased, what they're starting to realize more and more that it's just not about the numbers. It's the context of how the numbers were created. And that's something that people really have to start taking into consideration here. You look at Aaron Nola's numbers and you say that he is a very good baseball pitcher. Yeah, you can say that just by looking at the numbers. But you also have to take a look at the fact that, hey, the Philadelphia Phillies were at the bottom of the NL East last year, and now they're 15, 16 games over 500, and we're in the beginning of August here. So
yeah, no, I agree though. Like it really comes down to, if you're really making a difference on your team, that you deserve to have those types of awards. Obviously, you have to have the stats to go with it. But, I mean, I want to see what you're able to do to maybe create wins for your team. I mean, it's difficult for pitchers to do it, especially starting pitchers. I mean, you only get to pitch every 5 days.
Yep.
So, I mean, it is more difficult to make that type of an impact. But, I mean, he has definitely taken the stress off of guys like maybe Jake Arrieta, who thought he had to come in. He's got to drag this rotation along. And these younger guys on this rotation have taken the stress off of him, especially Nola. I mean, that is definitely something that has happened out of it.
Definitely. No, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. Just looking a little bit more into that, we're going to be moving on a little bit here on the Nick and Rob show here on Sports Town Chicago. LeBron James and his new I Promise school is going to make a whole lot of kids in his hometown, Akron, Ohio, very happy as he had his introduction ceremony to his first ever school that he opened this past week. And me and Nick will also be talking about the rise and fall of some NBA teams and making some way too early NBA predictions. And the Chicago Bulls, according to Vegas already, are pegged at 27.5 wins.
Second best or second worst in the East.
Second worst in the East. Me and Nick are going to be looking into seeing if we agree with Vegas or not. Join us for the last segment here of the Nick and Rob show coming up.
The reason I'm out here at the Illinois Media School is the radio business, while there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of stations, the people in the business is a small, tight-knit group, and I really enjoy the opportunity of being able to give back, connect, share the experiences I have, and actually learn from the students as well. My name is Dustin Rhodes. I'm the executive producer with the Mully and Hanley Show on 670 The Score, and I am IMS.
Hi, it's Frankie Robinson. The Illinois Media School, formerly the Illinois Center of Broadcasting, provides hands-on broadcasting and online media training in fully equipped radio and TV studios and web-based computer labs. The instructional staff consists of broadcast media and professionals like myself with many years of broadcast and online media experience. I've watched some of my former students get jobs and excel in the industry. Upon graduation, students are well prepared to enter the broadcast media industry. Check out our campus in Chicago and Lombard and visit beonair.com. That's beonair.com to learn how to get started.
Time to kick off your career in radio or TV broadcasting at the Illinois Media School's downtown Chicago campus. Call us at 312-884-8000 or visit 530 South State Street to learn how you can make your dreams of being on television and radio a reality. Don't take my word for it. Check out what some industry professionals said about the Illinois Media School.
Jonathan Hood, ESPN 1000.
People often ask me, Hoodie, how can I be a sports radio guy like you? I tell them it takes drive and determination, and you need to learn how it all works. You can learn to be a sports talk show host, a producer, do play-by-play, and shoot and edit video. You'll have a chance to get internships at stations where you can tap into the knowledge of industry pros. With job placement assistance, you can start your new career in 1 year. It's a great school to get the hands-on training you need for a broadcasting career, doing what you love. They have affordable tuition and financial aid for those who qualify. So don't waste another minute. Go to beonair.com/Chicago Sports. That's beonair.com/Chicago Sports.
Hi, I'm Rob Rose, and I'm one of the instructors here at Illinois Media School. I've been teaching here at the school since 2010, as a matter of fact, between Lombard and Chicago campuses. This is definitely the place to come. It's going to prepare you for absolutely everything that you need to know about the broadcast industry. We're talking radio, television, web, podcasting, absolutely everything. Get in touch with the school and take advantage of it. Make it your career. Do it now. I'm Rob Rose, nights on 100.3 WSHE in Chicago, and I am IMS.
Aurora Borealis Soccer is back on SportsTownChicago.com. Catch the Borealis as they join the United Premier Soccer League this season. Tune in for every game live, powered by the Beyond Air Network on SportsTownChicago.com.
High school sports is here, and SportsTownChicago.com, we are ready to provide the best high school sports live coverage all across Northern Illinois. From the first kickoff of high school football to the final spike of high school volleyball, we at SportsTownChicago.com are ready to bring you high school sports live. SportsTownChicago.com and STC Friday Night Lights in a league of our own.
The Boreales y Aurora regresan a SportsTownChicago.com. Sintonizan y apoyen a sus Boreales en su primera temporada en la United Premier Soccer League. Escuchen cada partido aquí en SportsTownChicago.com, patrocinado por el Beyond Air Network.
I came to Illinois Media School because I want to give back to the current students. It's something that really means a lot to me as an instructor, as a mentor, because I've been in this business for over 20 years. So it meant a lot to me to be able to come back and just teach some of the tricks of the trade to the students here at Illinois Media School. I'm Jonathan Hood from SiriusXM NBA Radio and ESPN Radio from the Illinois Media School campus in Lombard, and I am IMS.
Hi, I'm Antonio Blaney, and this is your exclusive home for the Windy City Bulls. SportsTownChicago.com.
SportsTownChicago.com is your home for exciting Chicago Dogs baseball. Catch the Dogs in action this weekend as they take on the Fargo Moorhead Redhawks. Games Friday and Saturday night starting at 7:05 and Sunday afternoon at 1:05. Right here on SportsTownChicago.com.
And welcome back to the Nick and Rob Show here on SportsTownChicago.com at the Lombard Studios here in Illinois. So we're going to talk a little bit about LeBron's school now. I mean, who would have thought he'd open up a school, huh? Like, I know he had the whole situation.
Absolutely amazing.
He had the whole thing where he gave, 1,000 kids tuition to go to Akron, right?
So I got the numbers. I got the numbers pulled up in front of me here. This is an article from ESPN.com. So these are just some of the. I'm going to go into the school's purpose, and then I'm going to name some of the things that LeBron James' school offers. But I mean, before I go into it, I mean, this is just absolutely wonderful for the best. I really do believe he's the best ambassador to the game of basketball has ever had. The things that he has done for this game on and off the court, all the publicity and all the people that he has drawn towards the NBA. Love him or hate him. I mean, this guy is going to be remembered. To quote Fall Out Boy, I mean, he's going to be remembered for centuries. You know, I mean, he's in a class of his own, you know, on and off the court. So just to go, like you said, Nick, into the schools a little bit. So like I said, quoting this ESPN.com article, the school serves 240 of Akron's most academically challenged students. The students were chosen from a random pool of underachieving third and fourth graders with the lowest marks on aptitude tests. Akron's biggest success story missed 83 days of school in the fourth grade. LeBron's dream is to give the children something he never had growing up, a quality education and to know that someone cares. And a lot of people know about LeBron's backstory, but for those of you that don't a little bit, his mother had him at 15, raised him as a single mother. To this day, I'm not 100% sure this is true, if this is factual, but I'm 100% sure that he has still never met his father to this day. That he still does not know who his father is.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong.
So I believe that is actually a fact. Please don't take that as a fact, but I just know that LeBron's father was never there throughout his entire childhood. So obviously Akron, Ohio, where he was growing up, is still to this day a very it's very filled with poverty and a lot of things like that. And it's wonderful for LeBron to go back and to do things to change for his community. So things that come along with LeBron's I Promise School, it comes with a free tuition, free uniforms, free bicycle and helmet for transportation for kids, free transportations within 2 miles, aka being bikes, scooters, whatever that might be, free breakfast, lunch, and snacks, food pantry for families of the children, GEDs and job placement services for parents of those children attending the I Promise School for LeBron James, and guaranteed tuition to the University of Akron for every student who graduates. Now, this school for the I Promise School for LeBron runs through grades 1 through 8. So as soon as you're done graduating 8th grade, whatever high school, probably the high school of, you know, whatever, Akron High School, whatever high schools that they have in Akron.
Yeah, wherever you go to, yeah.
Wherever they might go to, whatever that might be. After you finish, I'm sure your 4 years of Akron, you know, over there, maybe don't even have to finish, you know, go to high school, because, I mean, you already got, as soon as you finish at LeBron's school, hey, I already have a guarantee, you know, to the University of Akron. You know, that's just absolutely incredible.
No, it is a great thing for his community. I mean, him coming from that type of background and everything, he knows how it is. So I mean, it's definitely a good story. I mean, really, it's a feel good story. It's a feel good story that, I mean, it's great to see that he's giving back to his community, and I mean, it's really cool, everything he's giving to these kids.
I mean, he does. I mean, he gave them, I mean, I mean, combining from 2003 to 2010, his 7-year run there, and then from 2015 to 2018. So combine, I mean, giving them 10 years, playing in front of his hometown state, his hometown fans, giving them a world championship, in the most dramatic possible fashion that you can create, the most intense fairy tale from the biggest highs and lows. What LeBron James has done for the state of Ohio and for the city of Akron cannot be matched by any athlete, I think, out there for any professional sport. His story has just been absolutely incredible, and he continues and strives to be an incredible ambassador for the game of basketball.
Oh, absolutely. And now shifting a little bit now from schools, now we're going to go to off the court to on the court. So we're not really anywhere close to the NBA season quite yet. We're still in the off season.
Yeah.
No real signings coming out, so we're going to try and make
all the big ones are pretty much out of the way. Yeah.
Make a little bit of buzz for ourselves now. So you look at teams last season, and we're coming into this next season. We're both going to do this, but we're going to go into this. What team do you think rises from where they were last year? What team does a little bit better? Maybe rises a few spots in the standings.
It's interesting to say this because, I mean, it's kind of like a basic thing to say, but you got to say, well, I mean, the worst team that's out there, magically does get better. But, I mean, we saw with the Philadelphia 76ers for a number of seasons, stayed at the bottom very consistently for about 3 or 4 seasons, so that's not always the case. But there's no doubt in my mind that the worst team in the Western Conference last year, that being the Phoenix Suns, who also had the worst record in all of basketball, will be much, much improved going into this 2018-2019 season. So with that being said, the emergence of Devin Booker is obviously out there. I mean, a bona fide 25-point-per-game scorer. He is the franchise player. Signing him to his 5-year max extension was a brilliant, brilliant move by the Suns front office. Bringing in a coach. Oh my God, I hate myself for not remembering his name right now. I know he's a European coach. That had experience as an assistant coach before. Yeah, if you could pull that up for me, that'd be great, Nick.
I can here. Hold up.
Who has got a lot of coaching experience within the NBA who was an assistant coach to George Karl and Greg Popovich before. So that's going to bring a lot of experience. Obviously, having the number 1 overall pick with DeAndre Ayton certainly doesn't hurt either. But I think the biggest things that they're also going to improve upon, you got that, Coach?
Yeah, it's Igor Kokoskov. I'm not even going to.
Yeah, Igor Kokoskov.
Yeah,
Igor Kokoskov. Yeah, no, so he was an assistant coach under George Karl and Greg Popovich at 2 separate times. So obviously from both the offensive and defensive ends, he's worked under 2 of the best basketball minds that there's ever been on a basketball court. So that obviously helps with him. I think that's going to be a great period for Kokovac to start with such a great young, talented Suns team. But I think also the additions of Trevor Ariza really are going to help the Suns offensively and defensively. And then the draft night trade of Mikal Bridges as a 3-and-D player, it's really going to tighten up a lot of the shooting problems that the Suns had for that team. And although they play in the much tougher conference in the West, I think they're going to jump from about a 20-win team to about a 28 to about a 32-win team. So I think they're going to see about to a 10 to 12-win increase, which is a lot of games on an 82-game schedule.
Yeah, no, that'd be a nice jump for them. That'd be for sure. I mean, you look at the roster, like you named, they added Ariza, drafting Ayton, trading for Bridges on draft night. I mean, those are big moves for them going forward. They need Marcus Chris to really pick it up. He needs to make sure he needs – I mean, he's a young piece for them that they'd like to see really play well.
Of course they'd like to see him play well, but the pressure's taken off. Yeah. They have an abundance of big men. I mean, Alex Len was signed, I believe. Who was Alex Len signed by? I think he's still a free agent.
I don't think
he's still a free agent. I mean, you got Dragan Bender, Marquise Chris, and DeAndre Ayton who were signed. So you have 3 legitimate centers that are right there. Clearly, Ayton is going to be getting the starting nod. So Chris is either going to be,
Well, Chris, I mean, he's 6'10". I mean, you could put him at power forward if you really wanted to.
Yeah, but you don't get much out of him as a power forward. He would be a very good bench option. He is not a good starting. You got to give that to Tyson Chandler.
They have him
as a power forward.
Well, the thing is, I mean, what they have him labeled as is that he is labeled as a forward, with Chandler being labeled as a center.
That's probably how they played them last year, is because Chandler's the better defensive player and he's a better rim protector. He isn't a better above the rim player than Marquise Chris is, which is why they have him labeled as that. But for Tyson Chandler, I mean, he would serve great as a 4, as a defensive 4, because obviously Ayton, there's a lot of question marks around his defense. That will be able to be seen, but he'll be able to focus on that less with a former, top defensive player, in Tyson Chandler.
Yeah, that'd be a better way to.
And then obviously having Trevor Ariza, Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, Josh Jackson. There you go. I mean, you'll have Josh Jackson at the 3. You'll have Bridges off the bench. You'll have Booker at the 2. This Suns team they're going to make some noise. They're going to do some very good things. But the biggest key, obviously, is going to be the progression of them. But I love when young cores all start together and they push together and they form chemistry. That's how the great dynasties are built. As we can see, the great dynasty in the NBA right now with the Golden State Warriors. That's how they were created and formed. And who knows? We might be talking about the Phoenix Suns in about 2 or 3 years the same way.
Oh, absolutely. And I love your pick, honestly. It's you made some really good points with that. And
Thank you.
It's a pretty good
solid
pick. So
your team up
mine
on the rise.
is a team that literally just missed the playoffs last year. Like last game of the season, missed the playoffs. I mean, they played their exactly. They played their butts off all year, and they barely missed it. And they added some pretty nice pieces in this season.
Being what team?
Denver Nuggets.
Okay.
I mean, they added some good pieces going forward here. I mean, they still have Will Barton. Yeah. They added Isaiah Thomas. I mean, this dude can play. I mean, they still have Jamal Murray.
That could go as the most under the radar move.
It really could. Like, I
really
think
1 year, $1 million. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I mean, you can't forget about Jokic and Millsap up front. I mean, they have, in my opinion, one of the more underrated guards because he really wasn't. I think he was a second-round pick, or maybe he was undrafted. I can't even remember. But he was an Iowa State guard, Monte Morris. This guy, I think he could be a decent bench piece for them this year, coming off the bench as a guard. And, I mean, they added Richard Jefferson. They have Gary Harris. I mean, they have some legitimate players on this team that make them deep. And which, I mean, will at least I think get them to the playoffs this year and surpassing their win total, which they had 46 wins this last season.
You really think Denver's going to progress?
I think they're going to progress, yeah, absolutely.
To what? From 46 to
what? I think they at least can get to 48 to close to 50 wins.
Close to 50 wins based off of – okay, you have to keep in mind that their number 1 overall pick might not even play this upcoming season. Yeah. So that's going to hurt that. So that's automatically going to hurt them. But I agree, signing Jokic too, I think that's something that they needed to do. I agree with you. And I love the Denver Nuggets because they are deep. The biggest thing that helps them is the arena that they play in. Up in the mile-high city of Denver, the altitude. You'll get this from all players that go up to play up there coming in on the road. The air is obviously, if you've ever been to Colorado, it's very, very different, and it's hard to adjust to. Even inside of arenas like that, it's different to adjust to for a lot of players. Even running back and forth on the court, it's hard to adjust to playing up to Colorado up there. And you can look, they won one of the best home records last year in the NBA. So they also have that to a very good advantage. But no, I agree with you with that. I think they have a pretty deep bench. They have Gallinari coming off the bench, like you mentioned, with Gary Harris, Will Barton. They have some very good young pieces. I think they have Paul Millsap and Nikola Jokic also. I think they have some very good talent there, but I see them falling a little bit, to be honest with you, from 46 wins. That's just incredible that they couldn't even make the playoffs with 46 wins.
That's how strong the West is,
and it's how strong the West is continuously going to be. But moving from teams that are going to be on the rise to teams that are going to be taking a little bit of a fall back this year, you got one team that really stands out to you?
Oh, man. So I've been really thinking about it hard. I mean, obviously I could go with the cop-out pick being Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, that's too much of a cop-out pick, though. So I'm going to go with the team that I think is going to, just depending on how they handle the situation. And I really think that this team could fall. I wouldn't say a dramatic amount, but at least a few spots, being the Toronto Raptors. Okay. I think they could fall a little bit more because that locker room took a hit with the trade of DeRozan. I really think that it might not be an initial thing that happens with them, but going down the line, it could take a real hit for them.
But we're talking about the 2018-2019 season.
This next season, I think they will take a hit, though.
So they're going to take a hit, assuming what? So they're going to take a hit, assuming that Kawhi Leonard, the Kawhi Leonard MVP type level guy, and they get a good 3-and-D player in Danny Green, which is replacing a solid all-star in DeMar DeRozan, who did not have an outside game and is liable defensively. So you get upgraded with that, with assuming a healthy Kawhi Leonard, and they also get a shooter in Danny Green, but somehow they managed to take a dip. How does that work out?
See, with me, though, it's not the talent that's happening.
And the best player in the world did also change conferences, so that's also thing you have to take into consideration, too.
I am. No, don't get me wrong. I actually am here. But the reason why I'm saying this is just because you look at it as the locker room's going to take a hit. Because Kyle Lowry and DeRozan had a great relationship. And, I mean, the fact that they fired their coach after he just won the Coach of the Year award, I mean, that it just didn't make any sense. And the fact that, you know, you look at what this team has, a really nice team, all right? But I really think Kawhi doesn't want to be there. I don't think that Green is going to play wherever. He'll play. He likes the game. But I think Kawhi doesn't want to be there. And I think that Kyle Lowry is going to be disgruntled most of the year because they traded away his best friend. It's just going to be a locker room.
Okay, I disagree on a couple of points with that. First of all, that I know they are valid points. I'm not knocking your take in terms of talking about chemistry. I think chemistry is something you obviously can't qualitate into like a statistic, which I really agree with you on that. I think it's a huge part, especially on a team where you only have 13 or 14 guys, where most NBA teams really don't go 13, 14 guys deep anymore. But with that being said, I think that you have to take out of consideration. I think this helps Kyle Lowry. I think this is because Kyle Lowry, in terms of looking at point guards in the game of basketball, although this guy, he is balling out with money. I mean, this guy's making $30 to $35 million. Now we can actually start to see if he's actually worth $30 to $35 million, because obviously with DeMar DeRozan, he was a number 2 option. So with that being said, I think it's going to be very interesting. I think he's going to be able to take more of a role, because it was always known as, Lowry and DeRozan, they're always paired together. Now let's see how Lowry is going to be next to a superstar level talent in Kawhi Leonard. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to have the chemistry right away like how Lowry and DeRozan, because they had a numerous amount of years to build it. And let's see what the first-year coach with the Toronto Raptors are going to do. That's going to be way to be seen. But for the most part, they still have their bench, which was probably the best in basketball last year. They still have that intact. They lost Pirtle in a part of the trade.
He was a good young piece.
He was a good young center.
Yeah.
But which might take a hit a little bit. But, I mean, they pretty much have most of the same team together. But, I mean, the addition of Danny Green is going to be a huge help. I think that's the unsung part of this trade. And I really do think the Toronto Raptors, you can listen to me right now, they're going to be the first-seeded team in the Eastern Conference by the end of the year.
Ahead of the Celtics?
Ahead of the Celtics, ahead of the 76ers, ahead of the Pacers, ahead of the Heat, all of them.
Bucks, all these guys.
If we're talking about MVP candidates, Kawhi Leonard is my leading MVP candidate going into this year. People don't seem to understand. You go around the NBA and you say that, okay, this person doesn't like playing for this team, that team. There's a lot of guys that are like that. But, I mean, they haven't made it as publicly as knowledge as Kawhi has done. And also, with that being said, do you really think that he's going to do a lockout situation, what he was contemplating in San Antonio, where he was thinking about possibly sitting out if he was not traded? Now that he is traded, there's nothing he can do about that. If he sits out like that, if he wants to get moved again, which clearly is not going to happen, but saying if he did, he's going into a contract. This is his contract year at the end of this year. He's not going to want to sign to an extension to Toronto. He's going to go on to the open market. It's going to be down between 2 teams with the Lakers and the Clippers. And if he sat out this year, his value would diminish to almost all of his value being gone, to almost an Isaiah Thomas-like situation if he decided to sit out almost all of this year because he didn't get his way. So which is why I think he's going to come healthy. He's going to prove to people that he's coming for LeBron James as the best player in this game, and he's going to be a leading MVP candidate and lead the Toronto Raptors to the first seed in the Eastern Conference to at least give them one more chance at a finals push.
I mean, the points you're making, I mean, yeah, I just really think that the whole chemistry thing is going to play a bigger part than what you're giving it. I really think it's going to I don't think they're going to get close to what they were at with 59 wins. Even though you don't have LeBron in the East anymore, I think the chemistry thing is bigger than what you're playing it out as. I think that the Lowry-DeRozan relationship was big for that team. The fans loved him. And, I mean, I really think Leonard is going to just be probably just a pest in the locker room. I really think it's going to end up turning into just not the same situation as San Antonio, but it could very well turn into a pretty toxic situation.
Just one thing before we move on here, before I just mention the team that I think is going to take a little bit of a dip in this upcoming season. So, like I've told you this before, this analogy. I've taken this, obviously, what you and I like to do. look at a lot of sports media figures and everything, and people that do this, as their profession and everything else. I take, I call it, Kellerman's philosophy, Max Kellerman, what he does in terms of talking about people from like basketball perspectives. You don't break $1 into 4 quarters, or in this situation, you don't break $1 into two quarters. DeMar DeRozan is like 2 quarters here. He's a very, very good player, but he's not $1. He's not an elite type of player. Kawhi Leonard's $1 is what he is, and that is exactly what you got for DeMar DeRozan. So in that situation, there's no doubt that the Raptors upgraded, but I think I agree with you on one aspect. I think it could go either way. I think they're either really rise or they really fall. I really don't think there's much of an in-between there for the Raptors, but that's wait to be seen. But with my team that I think is going to take a fall, we're going to hop conferences a little bit. And this team was atop the Western Conference last year. Also a huge help because the Warriors were injured a lot for bits and parts of last year, but also because the MVP winner of last year played for this team, that being James Harden with the Houston Rockets, and the Houston Rockets in general are going to take a hit. Signing the extension for Chris Paul, I think, is going to hurt them in the long term. That 4-year extension they signed to, that's good for right now, but in the back 2 years of his contract, that's going to come up to bite him. But looking at this upcoming season, the loss of Luke Ricard and Bada Mute, and then looking at Trevor Ariza also leaving. Trevor Ariza is a huge hit. That's a huge hit that they've taken out of their lineup as a starting forward who's a great three-point shooter, one of the best three-point shooters they have. Great defensive player, too. With the Rockets, you look at their franchise scoring, one of the best scoring teams in NBA history last year. You also have to keep in mind that they also had very good lockdown perimeter defenders in PJ Tucker, Chris Paul, and and Trevor Ariza. There we go. So you take one of those guys out of the equation, that's going to hurt you a lot. And now that they're thinking about replacing with Carmelo Anthony, a guy where I'm not going to knock Melo because he was in an awful system last year in OKC where it was a very bad system to play in.
Him, yeah.
But when you have selfless guys like Harden and Paul, to give guys like that around you, I think that's going to help Carmelo in some ways. But if he's going to continue to be that ball-dominant guy that he is and expects to take 15 to 20 shots a game, the Rockets are going to be extremely hurt by that. And also his lack of defensive effort is also going to hurt the Houston Rockets tremendously as well. I think the Rockets can fall far as back as 4th or 5th in this Western Conference.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on with it. I think, they're not going to hit the 65 win mark again, especially if they add Melo. I mean, that's just there's too many ball dominant players on this team at that point, and it's going to become a little more difficult to feed all three at that point. And you look at the guys that they have around him. I mean, Eric Gordon's he's a good piece, and I mean, Ryan Anderson's a good guy to spread the floor. But I mean, you really don't have a ton else around these guys playing defense, and I mean that's what's going to end up hurting them. I think the long run. Granted, NBA. Not as defensive it used to be, but I mean, and also it's not really D'Antoni's MO, but I mean, you need at least some guys to be able to put forth some defensive effort.
So really quick, transitioning here on the Nick and Rob show on the Sports Town Chicago, just really quick, if you guys could add me, one of your hosts here, Rob Hill, on Twitter at real_Rob2017, or you can find me on Facebook under the same name, or on Instagram at real_Rob2005. That'd be extremely appreciated. If anybody is listening to this and you feel any way about your opinions, if you agree with my opinions, which you should over Nick's any day of the week, hey buddy. You're zoning out on me there. Are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay. No, I was just dissing you a little bit, and you were kind of like staring out in outer space. No, that's okay. So, I mean, if you agree with my opinions or Nick's, you can follow us on either one of those, or you could just leave a comment here on our Facebook live feed.
Yeah, and so now switching a little bit to the hometown team here. All right, you look at what the odds makers came out with recently, and I know you didn't know about this before we got here, and I told you, and you were just astounded. It was shocking, and honestly, when I heard it too, I was not happy with what people thought the Bulls were going to do this year. I mean, it might be just because we're Bulls fans. So, I mean, optimism is kind of we're very optimistic of what this team can do. But man, like people are not like with this number. It's really it hurts.
A lot more Bulls haters out there in Vegas than I thought there were. Didn't know there were Bulls haters out there in Vegas, and so you were the one that told me about this over under here, which became a part of our discussions today as a part of some of our segments. So yeah, what Nick was alluding to is that Vegas came out with a over-under projection so far for the upcoming 2018-2019 season for wins for all NBA teams, and the Chicago Bulls ranked with a 27.5 over or under ranking. Now, for Chicago Bulls fans, that strikes us as very questionable, considering that last year, how many wins did they have last year?
27.
They had 27 wins last year. So for signing Jabari Parker, a potential 20-point-per-game scorer, having Zach LaVine, knock on wood, for a full healthy season, having Chris Dunn for a full healthy season, having Bobby Portis evolve again, having Lauri Markkanen take the next step, and also adding Wendell Carter Jr., a lottery pick, as your starting center, and a very good slasher wing on your bench in Chandler Hutchinson, who's going to get a lot of bench minutes. Somehow we only jump up possibly one win after all of this. And again, the best player in the world also happened to switch conferences again, which is also one of your division rivals,
exactly.
which you play 4 times a year.
More, yep.
So, yeah, exactly. So somehow you don't manage to improve upon that. So go ahead, Nick, take it away first with what you feel about this and how many wins you think they're going to get.
It hurts, man. I think if you're a smart bettor, you take the over on this 100%. I mean, it might just be the optimism of being a Bulls fan. I mean, we are homies, obviously, but I mean, like, it's definitely it hit me hard that the fact that they only gave him a 27.5. I mean, it was not cool. So I really think that they can get 35, 36 wins. I'm giving them mid-30s because, I mean, this is still a young team. Even though they added Jabari Parker to the squad, he is still really young.
Well, what has to happen for them to get to that point?
I mean, these guys got to stay healthy. I mean, Levine's got to be able to stay on the court and play at that next level. What do certain guys have to do? Well, I mean, they have to keep developing forward. I mean, Wendell Carter's got to prove why he's taken in the top 10. He needs to at least put up 12 and 10 most games, 12, 13, 14 and 10 most games. Markkanen needs to stay the course and really keep moving forward, show that he's learned some defense. And you look at Jabari, even though he said he's not going to play defense, hopefully he plays a little bit. Praying there.
Jabari's just biggest thing is health. Is what we're all going to be watching
one thing for him. Yeah. And then LaVine and Dunn, they just got to stay on the court and they got to play to what, especially with LaVine, what he's being paid now. He needs to be at least close to, if not more than a 20-point game guy. He needs to be. So, I mean, these guys are the cornerstones for this franchise going forward now. They need to play like that. And I think 35, 36 wins is a reasonable number to go for. So, I don't know about you, though.
No, look, I think that you're absolutely right. I think, first of all, I'm not dissing 35 or 36 wins. I think yours is more realistic than what I have for them. I just have extremely high aspirations for this team. Because of the moves that they made in free agency and the moves that they made on draft night, and just with the guys that they have on their team already, as they're going to develop, as you mentioned already, Nick, a lot of them going into their second and third seasons. I just think this is a joke for 27.5 wins. It really is. Just to get down to it, I have them at 40 and 42. I have them improving by 13 overall wins. I have them finishing as an 8th seed team in the playoffs. Yeah, 40 wins is going to get you, folks. It's going to get you possibly even a 7th seed team might get you. It might get you into this Eastern Conference playoffs, to be completely honest with you. So let me dive into why. Zach LaVine, first and foremost, let's get into him right away. 20 points per game has got to be Zach's minimum. I really think Zach, he averaged 19.8 in his first full season with the Minnesota Timberwolves as a third option. So please don't tell me that LaVine cannot do that on a consistent basis. We saw him drop 35, I think it was 35 or 38 against the T-Wolves last year when he was putting his all-out offensive effort. There is nothing that this man cannot do on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, the guy next to him in the backcourt, Chris Dunn, will have that swiped up for him. I think Dunn and LaVine already being from Minnesota together, I think they already have excellent chemistry. On top of that, I think that I love how they're polar opposites. Dunn's a guy that can't shoot, but he's a great playmaker and can play defense. LaVine's a guy that can't play defense worth you know what, but then he can shoot the lights out of the ball. I like having guys that are polar opposites like that. Clearly, Lauri Markkanen is still as much as people want to say LaVine because of the money and because of the hype surrounding him, he is the quote-unquote franchise player. Lauri Markkanen is the cornerstone of this franchise moving forward. Things that he did last year are things that nobody expected him to do, but now everybody knows the expectations that we have for him, so now they're going to be heightened to an extreme level this season. Do I think he's going to hit that? No, but I expect that Lauri don't look at his numbers. Just look at his play, because his numbers might be around the same. They might not jump up a whole lot, because you're going to add a guy in Parker who's going to give you 15 to 18 points. Levine's points per game are going to skyrocket, but I expect Laurie to give you 18 to 20 points a game. I think that's something that he can handle with relative ease. As you and I noticed, Nick, he's added weight in the locker room. As of today, he's apparently added 14 pounds in muscle. I think that's going to help his post game. It's going to help him on defense, so he's not getting back down and beaten up by defenders. And then obviously down in the post, kind of like the Levine and Dunn thing in the backcourt, you got Wendell Carter, who's there to help Markkanen's lack of defensive prowess down there, down in the paint. You have Carter, who's going to be down there with you, protecting, the rim, being a great rim protector that he is, and really valuing rebounding. And as you mentioned, it's almost going to have like another Joakim Noah down there, kind of like who's Carlos Boozer. That's a little bit of a disrespect, but I mean, it could be very similar as of right now to see how that can work out. And they were a first-seeded playoff team with Carlos Boozer and Joakim Noah, so that's not a lot of disrespect. So they're not going to get there this year. But come back to me in 2019 or 2020, and we could be talking about a top 3 seeded, playoff team in the Eastern Conference again. And I really think with this young core, I think they have it right here. And I think it's going to start this season, and I think we're really going to start to see what these kids are made of.
I like that, actually. The comparison to Noah.
The baby bulls.
Yeah, I like the comparison, though, Wendell Carter to Noah, even though, obviously, Wendell Carter, God, I hope he's a better shooter. But
amen to that. Yeah.
Down low,
even though there was a time where Noah finished, I think, a year with like 13 points a game.
I'm talking about
just shocking.
With Wendell Carter, though. Yeah, he's got a better stroke.
Oh my God, definitely.
He actually can go out and hit threes if
what you need in the NBA nowadays is the stretch fives, stretch the floor.
So, but I like the comparison though defensively, though, being able to shut down the paint, having a guy like that down there, the big body to just body you. So, I mean, that I do like that comparison a lot. And I really do think this Bulls team can take that next step. I wouldn't be surprised if they get to yours. Especially with the way the East is, I would not be surprised to see 40 wins.
I just think the 3 question marks we have to look forward to is 1, Fred Hoiberg and how he's going to handle this team. 2, the health, and 3, the defensive problems on this team. The loss of Nawaba that nobody seems to really be talking about also really hurts the Bulls defensively off the bench. So that's going to be a huge thing moving forward with these guys.
Yeah, and I with the injury thing is what I like is the fact that they added Jabari Parker, and obviously the big question mark like you alluded to earlier is his health. And one thing that he's got to now adjust to a little bit too is he's been playing more as like a power forward most of his career so far. Even in college, he was more of a big man. He's got to step back now and play small forward, which is where they want him to play. I mean, he's got the size for it. He's basically the same size as LeBron. I mean, if you look at it, he's 6'8". So, I mean, he's got that versatility to cover almost anybody. But, I mean, the big question for him is his injury situations that he's had in the past.
Well, I mean, obviously, he's a hometown kid. It's a great story, for Jabari. He's a guy we're going to be looking at very closely up here in this upcoming season. But, I mean, he really turned the corner, towards the end of last season. He was shooting towards, his breakout averages the year that, that he tore his knee. So, if he can get back to that guy for a full healthy season like this, the Bulls can really if everything goes well in a perfect world, Laurie takes that next step. Zach LaVine becomes an all-star. Jabari Parker turns to form back to almost like an all-star level like how he was before. And then we get a solid rookie season out of Wendell Carter, and Chris Dunn remains a solid point guard that he already is. This Bulls team can make some serious noise here this upcoming season. But, there's a lot of what-ifs, and there's a lot of question marks that are waiting to be answered.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's how we're going to end the show today. We're going to leave it on a question mark.
Absolutely. No, this has been a wonderful show, and hopefully me and Nick will be back here in the studio, Nick and Rob Show, every Monday from 2 to 4 p.m. There's just been a lot of things, a lot of going on between Nick and I, a lot of vacation time, a lot of complications, a lot of transportation issues that now have been all cleared up.
No longer an issue.
No longer an issue. They're all cleared up and ready to go. But on that note, my name is Rob Hill.
And I'm Nick LoPicolo.
And this has been the Nick and Rob Show on Sports Sound Chicago.
The reason I'm out here at the Illinois Media School is the radio business, while there are hundreds, maybe even thousands of stations,